Season's greetings and welcome to episode 13 of Tomorrow's World Audit Time. A very special festive special, our first festive special. Season's greetings, Mark.
Merry Christmas, Ross.
How are you on this frosty, snowy, wintry night?
Well, all the better for being invited into your manse up here high in the Dutch Alps, Russ. Maybe listeners can hear, but that crackling fire is an absolute delight on this frigid day.
Yeah, I'm burning a couple of Edams on there. That's what I use instead of Yule logs over here.
Surprised you don't use clogs, Russ, but there you go.
A Christmas special, and I think before we start, we should address the slight Christmas miracle that we had a couple of weeks ago. Shortly after we released our last episode, we received, I think it was our first ever email we've received from a member of the public, wasn't it, Mark? I think, as far as I know.
I think it might be, yeah.
Tomorrow's World Audit Time at gmail.com. And that particular member of the public was none other than Mr. Howard Stableford. Now, we have no way of knowing whether it was actually Howard Stableford. He didn't send a photograph of him holding up today's newspaper or anything like that. But
the Colorado Times.
But I looked at the email address. It seemed like a personal email address rather than somebody just set something up in Gmail. So I'm liable to believe that it is actually him. But he sent us a very nice email. He said he stumbled across us on YouTube and he very much enjoyed our podcast and
he did.
assured us that he still tells dad jokes.
Yes, he does.
According to his children. So that was a real little surprise.
That put a spring in our step, didn't it? That was fun.
Yes,
absolutely. It was a right good laugh getting that.
Yes.
Yeah, because I think I woke up and there was a text message from you from 6 a.m. saying, "Have you seen who's emailed?" I was like, "No, I've been asleep, Russ." And then I looked and I was gobsmacked. It was an absolute delight.
Yeah. So hello, Howard, if you're still listening. Although I reckon he probably only listens to episodes that he's in. What do you reckon?
I think that's... Well, can you imagine listening to all these episodes? No. I think of course he's only listening to the ones with him in it. Quite right too.
Yes, yeah, they are some of them.
What's he gonna learn from episodes he's not in?
Yes, yeah. Yeah, Christmas. Well, we need to do a Christmas special.
Yes.
And I think what better typifies Christmas in Britain than 1973? I think there's two. there's to my mind, there are two eras that define a British Christmas. You have the Victorian era, which is where you've got Christmas trees and Christmas cards and carols and all that were popularised, figgy pudding, all those sorts of things. But then you have a second era, which I believe kicked in the 1970s, where you have all of the other things that we associate with Christmas, such as the Christmas #1 in the charts. Quality Street, probably. I don't know.
Why not guess that?
The idea of Christmas specials on TV. Your Morgan Rises and things like that.
Yeah.
And like having the one big toy that everyone that sort of thing. So if I think of Christmas, I still even these days really I still think it kind of harks back to the 1970s. There's a kind of warmness about the 1970s that goes well with Christmas, I think.
Which is ironic because they were crowding round candles during the 1970s, if I know my history. There's two things I'd say. One is I actually think you're onto something with this theory. I think the 70s, probably does define quite a lot of the pop culture elements of Christmas. The other thing is, as we have pointed out in previous episodes, we were both born in the 1980s, but by golly, does it look and sound like we were born in the 1970s based on so it's like there is a bit of bleed over into our own Christmases. The first Christmases I remember, I was 4 or 5, so it was the early 80s, early to mid 80s. So not that far gone from the 70s, but I think you're absolutely right. And even the other day when I was actually in the office, we were talking about Christmas decorations. And both myself and Adrian were commenting on the fact that those particular kind of 70s, 80s kind of plasticky concertina decorations that absolutely are part of the Christmas language of my childhood. I'm not even sure we had any, but they were everywhere. They were in everyone else's house. They vanished. And it was only then that I realised that some things haven't made it through. But it's a really decent theory. You're right. I think the Victorian era in the 1970s have helped shape Christmas what it is. I don't know what other decades have given Christmas. I think if anything, actually, the thing that has happened to Christmas over the last 20, 30 years is that it has expanded almost exponentially. And now Christmas is no longer a few days. It's, people are off work for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
which is I love. I mean, I love Christmas, but like now it is basically it's the entirety of December is Christmas, and people have allowed it to expand, and I would imagine quite a lot of that is because a lot of people have probably quite happy memories of their childhoods in the 70s and 80s when Christmas began to feel quite well. Look, I think let's put it down to his brass tacks here. When we started getting big presents at Christmas, we had happy memories at Christmas.
Yeah.
I still fondly remember I wanted a remote control crane on Christmas, Russ. And I think my mum managed to track down the only remote control crane in the entirety of Ireland one year. She's still very proud of that story. Because actually, I asked for it as a child. I don't even know if I'd seen it. I just wanted it. It's like just popped into my head, and then there enough, it appeared on Christmas morning. I was like, how could you not love Christmas when you get free shit? So why not make it bigger?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's funny enough because one of my fondest Christmas presents was a tractor, a ride-on tractor called pedal propelled, called Big John.
Big John.
Yeah. I remember the kids over the road being so jealous of it, they tried to convince me that Father Christmas didn't exist. I was having none of it, Mark.
Oh, the callous cynicism of your neighbours. That is unreal. Yeah. And now, of course, they're drowned in that pond you had out front. That'll teach them. Was it one of those ones with the levers that kind of lifted up the front bit and things like that?
No, but it was because a lot of those tractors.
It was a tractor, not a digger kind of thing, yeah.
Kids' tractors were 3-wheelers, weren't they? But this was a full-size 4-wheeler, and you could attach a trailer to it.
Oh, yeah. I love that you think it was full-sized. It wasn't, Russ. You were just really small. But I love what you're saying. Actually, the thing about those 3-wheel ones is that they just topple over, and they're quite dangerous, actually. Yeah, no, that's Christmas for you. So that's interesting because, I think you're right that the 70s, I think, has added an unfair share to the Christmas vernacular. And I think Christmas has got bigger and better. It's just expanded. It just fills. I think there was 2016. We went to Canada the very end of September to visit some friends, and we were over there actually for Canadian Thanksgiving and the first Trump-Clinton presidential debate, which is fun. And we got back to Britain, I think like the 11th of October or something like that. And we left Britain, and it was summer. And 2 and a bit weeks later, we got back, and there were Christmas ads on TV. like somebody had just clunked a giant switch and now all of a sudden it was Christmas. What's interesting is that this Christmas special I think is quite chaste by all standards, even of the day, let alone of now. Yeah, still I think Raymond's probably quite a traditionalist in the Christmas sense, so he's keeping it sort of pretty old school, although he does have some quite technological stuff in this. Oh yes, and obviously the most Christmassy thing of all is that at number one in the charts is spoiler for later in the show, but yeah, is of course Slade's Merry Christmas, everybody. The most Christmassy of all Christmas number ones. Even more Christmassy than somebody wishing it was Christmas Day every day. That's how Christmassy it is. Yeah, one thing that hasn't happened to me this year is possibly because we're all stuck indoors to a large part, I've not heard a huge amount of Christmas music yet. And I eagerly anticipate being bombarded with it because I can't get enough of it. It's put it straight into my veins. All of them. No, not all of them. That's not true. I don't love every Christmas song. But who doesn't love Slade this time of year? Have you got a personal favourite? I think, Hipster's Choice, Pose and Kirsty MacColl. I think whenever that comes on, I immediately... That's your Proustian rush, right? But, I do love a bit of Slade and a bit of Mud. Again, 70s stuff, but actually... it would probably be the Pose. It'd be the one where that's the one I kind of anticipate organically hearing. I know for a lot of people it's Last Christmas by Wham, which is another classic. Yeah. But it's Hipster's Choice and me, Russ. What about you? I think it's got to be Chris Rea, Driving Home for Christmas. Really? Yeah. Really? Yeah. Wow. I find that quite dirty. I love a bit of Chris Rea. I always... but I know it's people do love it. I always wanted to do some sort of short film where the soundtrack is purely Driving Home for Christmas, and it's cutting between a man in his car full of presents and then like a wife and her family at home getting ready for Christmas, and then the ending. He gets to the ending, and then he gets to the door and everything, and it turns out that either he's a murderer
Or they're divorced and she's got some sort of restraining order against him.
Oh wow!
What a great short film that would make, wouldn't it?
Oh, that would be good. I thought you were going to say that, like, it turns out he's on the road to nowhere. And he's just trapped in some kind of purgatory. But there you go.
that would be the sequel where I used Road to Hell. So just a series of short films based on the music of Chris Rea. That's quite a good idea, actually, Mark. I might do that.
We all have to have a project.
Yeah. Anyway, speaking of excellent music, shall we fire up some now?
Please do.
What place more appropriate than home to welcome you to our Christmas edition of Tomorrow's World? Come on in. Oh, that's better. Well, we've got a brand new television parlour game for you. We've got a competition. Mike Rodd sings for his supper and mixes it with a musical computer, and William Woollard has gone foreign in search of snow. Of course, whether or not we shall have a white Christmas here remains to be seen. But if we do, it will almost certainly take the local authority by surprise. In Switzerland, they order things rather better.
Immediately, a little Christmas treat for you, Mark.
A Christmas miracle, Ross. Oh, can you believe it? We've already discussed these opening credits.
You've been re-gifted the credits.
There's nothing to talk about. These are the same credits we discussed in episode 9 from the 6th of June 1974, the one with the woman flipping a coin. I've got nothing to add, Russ.
No.
Except that there's not a sleigh bell or a little bit of tinsel added to it at all.
That's probably quite difficult to do back then.
Probably, to be fair. Yeah. But this does mean that this episode is now 45 minutes shorter.
But then, so a piece of music, and then we cut straight to Raymondo's garden. He's broadcasting from
huge.
his own home, the Baxter Estate, I assume it's called.
Yeah.
Or the Baxter Building, maybe. And it's a beautiful old house and a beautiful old park he's got there. He's got some firewood under his arm, and he's dressed in... How would you describe that, what he's dressed in?
An explosion of beige. I mean, it literally from the tips of his loafers to the neck of his turtleneck jumper. It is the same hue of beige. Shoe, trow, jump, all the way up, all the way down, all the way left and right. We cannot say anything about his underwear, but I would not be shocked if they were equally and similarly beige. And the thing is, there's a shot later on where his hair looks beige. So actually, the only thing, it's almost like it's just got this little pink face just shining out from the inside of a Dulux catalogue. That's how I would describe it, Russ. I don't know about you. I don't know if you have a...
Well, it looks extraordinarily comfortable. It's a real sort of leisure wear. It's the kind of stuff I don't think a man of Raymond's poshness would wear, it's essentially a tracksuit, sort of in that style these days. You know, it's probably considered sort of quite forward-thinking, modern outfit back then. It reminded me of the outfits that they wear in Space 1999. Do you remember that? That's what they all wear, beige tracksuits.
I do a bit, yeah.
But yes, then he goes through his French windows into his living room, into his lovely old living room, very high ceilings.
Fabulous.
Got a chandelier.
Huge. Massive.
There's a fire on. Huge.
Yes,
raging. Huge Christmas tree.
Yeah.
Antique furniture all around.
Well, I mean, it probably wasn't antique then. He just bought it when it first came out.
Good point. Yeah. And a quite interestingly decorated Christmas tree, I thought.
Well, we both did, didn't we? It's very curiously done.
It's sort of a lot of tinsel on there, a real explosion of tinsel, but it's all emanating from the top, as if he's expecting it to kind of trickle down the tree.
Yes, indeed, yeah. The way economies work, Ross, yeah, absolutely. The top 1% of that tree are really living at large at the expense of the poor proletariat down at the bottom who were naked as a jaybird. Yeah, because the thing is, it's a really big tree. Like, it must be 8-9 feet tall, and it does not fill the space it's in. And I mean, as I said to you, like, I was really unimpressed by the tree, but knowing that he absolutely must have done it with his family, I'm actually quite impressed with it as a result. Like, it is his domestic Christmas tree that he and his family have done. It turns out that they've all got, 17-foot long arms and the inability to bend over. But other than that, the Baxters are fine.
Maybe they brought in a step ladder, started doing the top,
And then forgot to
ran out
not
of
be on it.
preparations once they got the step ladder away.
You're absolutely right. Yeah.
The only other thing I noticed,
it's like it's been sprinkled.
The other thing I noticed is above his fireplace, he has a painting which looks very much like a canaletto to me.
It really
and
does.
It has a plaque
of Venice.
Plaque
yeah.
it. So, I mean, I can only assume that he's got a genuine canaletto in his living room.
Why not?
Why else would you have a plaque underneath a painting?
Let's assume he liberated during the war. Spoils. That's what they call it, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, probably just.
It looked pretty good to me. This is before like real top quality prints are made. So I don't know, why not? Why not assume it's real? I noticed something too. To be fair, when he was outside in his front garden, I noticed 2 pampas grass bushes, Russ, outside his French windows. I'm just going to put that out there. That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying anything. I'm just saying I noticed them. And when he walked through, they were sort of waving at us, waving at the camera, these pampas grass bushes. Just, again, they're drawing attention to themselves, really. They're asking for it, not, I don't know. I don't know what he's doing.
He's got that loose-fitting loungewear on. Well,
the lady's choice.
I actually had a look into it. I tried to find out where Raymond's house was.
Well, they came to me. Don't know why. It just felt very familiar.
Well, it's this house in particular is located in Denham, Buckinghamshire. It's in the Queen Anne style and had a 32-acre garden.
Bloody hell!
But I don't want to start off on a little bit of sadness.
Okay.
But it's 1977 was a pretty poor year for Raymond because that's the year he got sacked from Tomorrow's World.
Of course.
I just say a few months before this, he had to got rid of his gardener who lived in a cottage on the estate. He got rid of his gardener because he was incompetent. Presumably he didn't keep the pampas grasses trimmed correctly or something, I don't know. A man called Albert Murphy. But the gardener, presumably because he was losing his home, decided to take Raymond to court for unfair dismissal. And while giving evidence in court to the industrial tribunal, poor old Raymond uncharacteristically broke down in tears. Yeah, wow. It was big news at the time, apparently.
Because he cried?
Yeah, because Raymond Baxter cried. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, but Raymond won the case. But, yeah, I think probably maybe the pressure of not getting on with Tomorrow's World at that time was getting to him or something like that.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
But only a year later, he sold up and moved to Henley to a different house. Which is where he remained until he passed away.
I'm sure it was nowhere near as big, but I have a sneaky suspicion it was still a grand
yeah, I would say so.
Palace. Yeah, Henley famed for its lovely places. Oh, well that's sorry to hear that. But hey, to be fair, when we're watching, it's still a happy family home.
Yeah.
I wonder who lives there now.
Yeah, good point. Don't know. Some rich person.
Listeners, if you know who lives in the
That might be our next email, the owner of that house. You never know.
That'd be amazing. Circles we travel in, Russ. Oh, it's all changed for us now.
Right, anything else about this intro? Oh, I like the way he gives a little rundown of what's coming up in the programme. This has a couple of points. He describes what is going to be a video game, but he describes it as a parlour game, which I thought was interesting. Yeah. He refers to Mike Rod, so he's the second person to call him Mike Rod. So maybe that's how Michael Rod liked to be. Michael Rod doesn't strike me as a Mike.
No, and the credits always describe as Michael, little Mickey Rod.
Actually, I was thinking about
Rod.
Michael Rod. I was thinking that as this is a Christmas episode, he's very much our partridge in a pear tree, isn't he?
Very good. Yes, he absolutely is, isn't he?
Yeah. And then a little dig at the local UK authorities for being unprepared for snow as well. The old perennial. That's never going to change, is it?
Well, they're better now than they were before. He also said William Woollard has gone foreign in search of snow. And that was just a weird turn of phrase, and I've never used the word foreign.
Yeah, you'd think it's
placed at that point.
You'd think it's say gone abroad, wouldn't you?
Well, gone abroad, yes, or has gone to find foreign snow or something like that. Yeah. But yeah, gone foreign. I don't know. That was just really odd. It just struck me as I don't think it's mushmouth. I think he meant to use it that way. It's just I've never heard foreign in that context.
No, not at all. And well, should we find out where William Woollard has gone foreign?
Yeah, let's do that.
3 feet in less than 24 hours. And that's by no means an unusually heavy snowfall for 6,000 feet up on the Clausen Pass in central Switzerland. There are plenty of places in Europe that get snow much heavier than that. Now, if you're as keen on winter sports as I am, or if you just happen to like white Christmases, that may sound pretty close to paradise. But if you're a roadman, then it's just a headache, a giant-sized removal problem. And believe me, shoveling isn't the answer. There's nothing new about snow blowers, of course. But this is the latest model to come off the Swiss drawing boards. And although it's not exactly put together like a watch, it is a very neat piece of motor engineering, with a quite remarkable performance for its size. This thing can shift up to 2,000 tons of snow in an hour, whatever the snow conditions. That's a very large heap of snow indeed. The secret of its performance seems to be they've given it 3 quite independent hydrostatic drives. One, to power these nasty-looking knives that mash up the snow. Second one, to power the impeller here, which blows the snow in that beautiful 60-foot arc. And the third one, for the main wheels. So the driver has an almost limitless number of combinations of forward speed and cutting power to choose from to suit whatever snow conditions he comes up against.
Now, we were talking in the intro about getting a crane and a tractor for Christmas. Imagine if you turned up in the living room on Christmas morning and unwrapped one of these bad boys. Would have been
Bad boys, yeah.
would have been absolutely thrilling, wouldn't it?
Oh, a giant. Well, here's the thing. He refers to it as both a snow blower and a snow plough, and I'm sure both neither are correct, but they're also both accurate. It is. I mean, don't get me wrong. It's a tremendous bit of equipment, and it does look really cool. This whole segment looks cool. William Woollard looks cool. It starts off an establishing shot of him in this valley, and it kind of, the camera turns, and he's there shoveling away on what is a road, because you see 2 kind of hazard street signs coming up through the snow, which is a lovely pop of colour because it's all white. He's resplendent. Dairy milk-esque, resplendent in black, all black.
Black leather.
Absolutely, and then you have these
Gestapo about him, but...
It's a fine line, isn't it, between dairy milk and the Gestapo. Yeah. And little pops of colour from these hazard signs. It just looks... the whole thing is brilliant, and he's shoveling away. And then later on, you see this machine, this huge orange machine with these red... I don't know, what would you call these things at the front that kind of...
He calls them... what does he call them? He calls them I think he calls them hydrostatic blades or something like that. Is that what he calls them?
Which is something... Yeah, that rings a bell.
Something like that.
You think we'd remember. Yeah, the whole thing looks epic. However, the second time I watched this, got slightly annoyed at what I think is a really sneaky backdoor pilot to create Top Gear. This is not a Tomorrow's World segment whatsoever, because it's all about his joy at this giant car, for want of a better word. Yeah. And once because initially it's like, oh, that's really interesting. This is how the Swiss clear the snow from the roads. And then, second time around, I said, no, this has got nothing to do with that whatsoever. This is him getting his rocks off on this. He is priapic with excitement, just looking at it. It's astonishing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Am I wrong?
Yeah, no, he's presenting it in the classic Woollard style of Top Gear, where it's very dry descriptions of, the heated cabin, the adjustable seat, the
slip differential or whatever. And I'm thinking, I don't care what the differential is.
Yeah.
What does it do?
Yeah, that's pure old school Top Gear. That was a very good observation. You can absolutely bang on. Yeah, I think you dispute this, but I did notice when he first opens the cab, he does raise his leg up onto the footplate, which I think may be our first sight of some Woolarding in the wild.
I do dispute this. I think he's put his leg there out of sheer practicality to support himself because the cab is so high up. I think, however, there is a much more legitimate Woolarding later on, but maybe not from the source you're thinking of. That's all I'll say. So, you're going to want to stick to the second half of this podcast to find out more about that. No, it's just a really weird segment that has, because as I said, this blower/plough thing is hugely impressive. And when he demonstrates all the bits, so it's got this thing at the front that kind of gobbles up the snow and then it fires it out the side in this arc. And then, the pièce de résistance, later on, he raises the cab 10 foot.
Yes.
So and that is I didn't know I needed to see that in my life, but I did.
That was very exciting. That sort of...
Very exciting.
That's
legit
transforming vehicles when we were kids, they were all the rage, weren't they? Any sort of transformation in a vehicle, all over it. And that, that's basically Optimus Prime he's driving there.
It reminded me of Mask.
Oh, yes. Yeah,
similar kind of thing, because it doesn't turn into a robot or anything, but it just looks like it turns into another kind of vehicle. No, it's tremendous.
Yeah. No,
it's
it
lovely.
looks like huge fun to drive that. I mean, I imagine a lot of the fun comes from seeing an approaching skier or hiker and rotating the snowblower in their direction and actually blasting them with snow. That's what I mean.
Of course, absolutely.
Yeah. No, he said it clears. I think he said it clears 2,000 tons an hour, which
that's a lot, isn't it?
Seems like a lot, doesn't it? Sounds like a lot.
I'm assuming that's imperial tons. I don't know what that is in real money, but I know a ton is still a lot.
Yeah.
So and when you see it at work, it's hugely convincing that it does what it's supposed to do. But this is not Tomorrow's World, Russ. This is Top Gear. So I'm not paid to audit Top Gear episodes, Russ. That's somebody else's job.
I'll have to find another co-presenter for that one, aren't I?
Yeah, you are. Yeah, it's very much a side project that you can get your dirty mitts on.
There was one thing, the second time I watched it, which I thought was quite interesting, Mark. This is back in the age of the BBC being extraordinarily careful not to show you any brand names. Within this VT, they've gone to extra lengths, so I don't think that they would obscure a vehicle name normally. I don't think if he was driving a Mercedes or an Audi or a Rolls Royce, they would stick sticky tape over the badge of one of those vehicles. Yet this vehicle, they've clearly stuck a big bit of yellow tape over the badge on the front, and then there's a couple of supplementary badges down near the headlights, and they've stuck 2 bits of tape over those as well. So they really tried to make an effort so that we don't know what it's called. Unfortunately, they cut to a close-up of the plough, blower, whatever it is, coming towards us. And at one point, the tape has come off one of the badges, or they've got the tape over it temporarily, and we can see that it's a Rolber.
Yeah, that famous brand name, Rolber. No wonder they try to hide that from us.
Which is an absolute godsend for my research, Mark.
For your research, yeah. Brilliant. I have to say, when you pointed it out to me, I was gobsmacked, because I was leaning into the screen to see it. It's like, you're absolutely right. And I remember thinking, A, I bet you these are not retail. No one can buy these. And B, it's like there probably isn't a competitor. So who are you protecting exactly?
Yeah.
Absolutely overzealous. So all the more shocking that they sing. You wouldn't have noticed the name or enough of the fact that you spotted that it was covered up, except for one example. So what can you tell us about the Rolber?
Hugely successful, Mark. Hugely successful. Obviously in the world of snow clearance.
Yeah.
And they still make them now. It's a Swiss company, as he said, not to be confused with a Swedish company, which is even more confusing because everybody always gets Switzerland and Sweden confused. A Swedish company called Rolber, who make lorries that suck sewage out of tanks. Not the same company, Mark.
Wow.
But the Swiss company Rolber, they're now part of a big, huge conglomerate after some buyouts, but they still make them. And this is the Rolber R1200. If you go on eBay today, you can buy yourself one, Mark. There's one for sale. An ex Preston Council one for sale. Do you know how much they're going to set you back? The buy it now price?
I've the buy it now. Yeah. Right, you can't even go in the auction. I literally have no idea. I have no concept. I don't know, $4,500. I've no idea.
16,950.
Oh, that makes much more sense. Yeah, because it's a hugely impressive thing.
It's only done 400 kilometres. It's only got 400 kilometres on the clock, so you know.
Well, it's not quick. Is it?
So, I mean, how many snow clearances is it done? I know Preston's up north, but I can't imagine.
I bet you the cab extender has never been used in danger at all. Like, it's only ever been used to show off to girls.
Yeah. Actually, I'm thinking about how dangerous do you think those choppers on the front are? I mean, do you reckon you could, do some serious damage if you drove it into a crowd?
If they were very slow, like you can just walk out of its way. Would it do some damage? Yeah, it would do some damage. Yeah, definitely. I think so. It's not like a wood chipper. It's not like in Fargo. You know,
No.
I don't think it's going to be that quite extreme. But yeah, like it. Excuse my language, but fuck your arm off.
Yeah, I think we should see one in. If we could in a James Bond film, he could use it to chop up some goons.
Again, though, I have to emphasise it is quite slow. Like it's not swifty, you know, nor is it
Get
quiet.
Q to attach a rocket engine to the back.
Oh, great! Oh, it's just done then, isn't it?
But yes, no, you can still. You want to buy a brand new one? They've got a whole range of new ones that, obviously, for different uses, different sizes. You've got the lowly. This one's the R1200. These days, you've got the lowly R500, which does 1,800 tons an hour. But then, if you absolutely shell out for the big boy, the R5000, which they use at airports, that will knock out 8,000 tons an hour.
Amazing.
That is amazing, isn't it? Yeah. I think you'd want to build a giant snowman.
Using your eye, using your eye there. Is it obviously bigger than the 1200, or is it just
I've got the website here actually.
beefier? Yeah, but
It looks.
You've
I'll
seen
tell you
them.
what it looks like. It looks.
Paint a picture, Russ. Paint a canalesso for
It
us.
looks like about the size of a combine harvester, but
Okay.
the blades, but without the blades sticking out. As if you've got a combine harvester, and
Yeah,
chop
yeah,
the blades
yeah.
down to the width of the lorry.
Oh, it's definitely bigger,
Yeah,
isn't it? Yeah. Oh wow, airports. I suppose they need
Or
it.
imagine how
Brilliant.
lovely and heated that cabin is now, and how lovely and soft the seats are, Mark.
He was absolutely delighted with that cab, wasn't he? Oh, and actually, the thing that thrilled him most was the emergency hatch at the back. Yeah, I bet it's toasty. You could probably get your. I mean, if it's as big as you described, you can probably get a little kettle in there.
Oh yeah. We'll get probably quite steamy in there, though, then, wouldn't it?
True, but Russell Hobbs these days they're quite efficient, aren't they, with their steam?
And I know you asked because Willy Woolly tells
us a little story, doesn't he?
He says that once somebody got caught by an avalanche and presumably jumped out the escape hatch. But
Yep.
the vehicle continues moving once you set it in motion, and apparently the vehicle chugged through an avalanche and appeared out the other side. I couldn't find any reference to that in any of the.
No, it sounded like anecdotal BS, didn't it?
Yeah.
I don't know, like it popped outside the avalanche outside like a primary school and they've hushed it up.
Oh, what about if it was in a horror film and it chugged across a campsite at night? Then it wouldn't matter if it was going slow, Mark.
Oh, I don't know. Well, yeah, obviously. Why not? I mean, you're the one doing the Chris Rea themed horror films here. So, I mean, you sound like it. Again, the other thing is, like, he says he basically implies it's whisper quiet. It's not. It's quite loud.
Yes, yeah. Does he talk? He doesn't talk over at any point, though, does he?
No, he doesn't, unfortunately.
No, so that.
Who knows if we'll be able to tick that box for us? We'll have to keep watching and find out.
Yeah. So, shall we keep watching?
Yeah, let's do it.
For a great many people, Christmas has become very much a television occasion. But in case you've decided to miss out a couple of programs, here's a brand new idea from the United States which can turn your television set into a game that two can play. All you have to do is, first of all, to switch it off, unplug the aerial, plug in the electronic game simulator, switch on the set again, and now who's for tennis? Because that's what we're going to play. There's a choice of hockey, baseball, skiing, roulette, or even football, American football, of course. And having made your choice of game, you select the appropriate programming card, select it into the master control unit, which you have to have for any game. And, of course, for tennis, you have two player controls. The main control unit is a battery-powered transmitter, and with the tennis game card in position, on the screen appears the net and two squares representing the players. Right, Wimbledon, here we come. Each player has two main controls. This one moves his man on the screen vertically, this one horizontally. This one gives a crafty bit of spin to the ball. It's labelled English, and this reset button serves. You ready, Jen? Play. 15 love.
From last week, where we were talking about revolutionary.
Last week.
We're talking about revolutionary computer games.
Yes, we were.
We've got
Doom.
the most revolutionary of them all, I think. Basically, ground zero of the home computer game, the video game, the console. And Raymond's got it in his living room, and he's playing it against his own daughter. I think it's the only time. Have we seen any other family members of anybody on Tomorrow's World? I don't think we have.
I can't think of anyone yet, no.
She seems reluctant to be on television.
Yeah, she really does seem very reluctant. I think this is quite a famous segment actually, because I've definitely seen this before, and yeah, she's happy enough to be there, but she does not look like this is her most favourite pursuit that she's been involved in. She's not reluctant; she's just not happy. I have to say, I'm trying to think of the reason I'm struggling with the words is because the only thing I can think of is that she looks like a hostage. And I don't want to say that, that's unfair, because they do look like they have a laugh later on, but it has that, she gives off that hostagey vibe.
Yes, yeah. I just very briefly, before we get into this console, I did a little bit of digging on Jennifer Baxter. I
thought he called her Joan.
No, he calls her Jen.
Jen.
Yes.
Oh, I thought it was Joan.
Yes.
Okay, Jenny Baxter.
There's not a great deal about her online, but luckily I found Raymond's account of appearing on This Is Your Life. And in that, he mentions that she's a fencing instructor. So from that, I was able to extrapolate out and find out about her. So she was born in 1957, which means she is 16 years old in this particular.
Oh wow! Oh dear! Oh dear!
It's a tough old paper round she must have had. But these days, when I looked into this, she was married to a man called Paul. I assume she still is married to a man called Paul, and has 2 daughters. She's been 64 now, and she worked as a freelance writer up until 2003. But she'd always had an interest in fencing, and in 2003 she was part of some program where the Hungarian Olympic fencing team, which was one of the people that they trained up to become a top fencing coach. And ever since then, she's taught fencing in the schools and around the country and things like that.
Wow.
And the only other thing I found out about her is that in 2006, her 12-year-old daughter got hit by a paintball in Reading shopping centre.
Oh, God. But the Oracle.
Berkshire Live, the newspaper, girls' terror at paintball blast. Jennifer Douglas's daughter, Rebecca, was shot by one of 2 boys aged around 11 while standing near the top entrance of Debenhams in the Oracle shopping centre in Reading.
2 boys, you're saying, yeah?
Yeah.
Are we seriously being led to believe that neither Ant nor Dec learned their lesson?
At first, Rebecca's mum, Jennifer, 49, feared that she was bleeding, but it turned out to be paint residue from the pellet. Yeah, so...
God, how weird.
It's a mugger's paradise up there, fumed Mrs. Douglas, which is obviously Baxter's married name.
Yeah.
So, yeah, sounds like, a pretty dangerous place, old Reading Oracle shopping centre.
I have to say, I've been to the Oracle. It's not a mugger's paradise. It's got a John Lewis in it. So let's get things in perspective here. Having said that, that does not sound fun. Being hit by a paintball when you're paintballing isn't fun. So being hit by a paintball when you're shopping is probably quite surprising.
Not the first time a member of the Baxter family's had a gun waved in their face, but we'll get to that. We'll get to that in a minute.
Yeah, what we just... A brand new idea from the United States, he says.
Yes.
So I don't know. I'm guessing this must be the first time what we would call a computer game was shown on British TV.
Yes, because I think you can tell that because Raymond doesn't have the descriptive terms to describe exactly what it is.
No, he definitely uses his own phraseology here.
Yeah, which is why he calls it a parlour game in the intro, and then he uses a couple of weird terms in this.
He describes the console unit as a master control unit.
Yeah.
Which I thought is that one of the bad guys in Tron?
It might be something like that, yeah.
Yeah, something like that, yeah.
They're still in the living room, which when I first watched it, thought was a completely different room. But it's only because it's from a different angle, and they're lit very brightly and harshly, as if this light is emanating from their TV. And then Raymond goes over and plugs in what he describes as the, what does he call it? The electronic games simulator into his TV. And then grabs 2 controllers, the 2 least ergonomically designed controllers
oh boy
I've ever seen. They look like they weigh a ton, don't they? They look
they're like mini K9s.
Huge rectangular blocks. Yeah, like mini K9s,
Yeah, gigantic cubes. Yeah.
They've got little dials on them for controlling the thing on the screen.
And the cable connected them to the master control unit or the electronics game simulator. It's thick. Yeah. It's like fiber optic cables that they're putting into streets. They're like this big, heavy, unflexible
you could
length of cable.
And
Yes, Absolutely.
Yeah. And he puts the games in. The games just it comes in these little flimsy cards with no indication of what they are. Sort of like
Not zero, yeah.
Yeah.
And they really look flimsy and fragile. As you rightly pointed out, it's like there's a reason console cartridges end up kind of being wrapped in plastic. You know, is because the actual kind of electronics are really, really fragile, and he's just shoving it around. And the games he describes, I think he describes it as an American football game, which I find to be highly unlikely.
Isn't American football extremely complicated? Like, especially,
it's an incredibly complex game, and like impressively complex, incredibly intellectual. A lot going on at any one time, and yet all this can manage is 3 dots on a screen. So
and only one of which can move horizontally. The other two can only move vertically.
Yes, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, I think you have to use a lot of imagination for that. But Raymond decides to select classic, what we would describe as Pong, although he doesn't call it that. He just calls it tennis. But there's no bats in this version. The players are just blocks. So it's basically 2 blocks, singular square blocks, hitting a singular square block. He settles down on the sofa with Jenny, and then proceeds to absolutely thrash her 40 love.
He really does, yeah. And then laughs in her face.
Yeah, absolutely no sort of, I don't know, not trying to be gentleman in any way.
I have to say, he may not have heard the terminology or the lingua franca to describe computer games, but he's certainly got the spirit of playing computer games with a member of your family down pat real quick.
Yeah. Maybe that's his, his fighter pilot-like reactions are still there, Mark. That's it,
Oh, absolutely. Well, his Nazi hunting reactions we're about to see in a minute, aren't we?
Yeah.
Because the thing that really... Because I had definitely seen the first part before. I'd seen the first part where they play what is ostensibly Pong before. I don't think... It might have been on another episode of Tomorrow's World where they... Because obviously computer games become something big. So they said, we were there first. And then they showed the first half of it. So I had never seen the part of this segment where Raymond Baxter pulls out a shotgun, Duck Hunt style.
Shotgun as well.
A bizarrely realistic shotgun with proper pump action. Gun metal black, albeit it's plastic. I'd never seen the fact that the technology for Duck Hunt, already existed. But the thing that really, really entertained me more than anything is that he did what anyone would do when you pick up a gun peripheral for a computer game. He immediately pointed it in the face of his family member. He smiles at her. He points it at her, smiling.
While he does it,
yeah. Brilliant. As I said, this guy's ahead of the curve here. He knows exactly what we're all going to be doing.
And unfortunately, Jenny's off screen at this point, so we can't see what her reaction is. I like to think she recoiled in terror.
Of course she did, because it's frighteningly real. There's no red cap on the end of this.
No. And then Raymond plays a game which looks remarkably similar to the tennis game, except at this point he's, as you say, using duck hunt technology to try and shoot the ball. Yeah. It's quite hard to determine whether he's hitting it or not. I think it's meant to disappear if you hit it.
It looks like he does 50% of them. But I have to say, my assumption is you have to be dead on that little white square to make it disappear.
Well, games were always hard then, weren't they?
Yeah, that's true. Do you think this game was part of the Duck Hunterverse, Russ?
Hugely important. I don't think anybody watching this at the time would have known what could have possibly envisaged how we'd end up with a console in our homes, everyone's home. But I wondered what this particular, because I assumed that this was Pong, but it's not Pong. This is actually called a Magnavox Odyssey. And before we get into this, can I just point out that they originally wanted to call it the Magnavox Skillovision, and then they decided to give it a more futuristic name. So they called it the Magnavox Odyssey, Mark. Now, why did they call it the Odyssey, do you think? If they wanted to make it sound more futuristic.
Ross. All right, let me just write this down. We'll come back to this later on.
I think it's clear cut. It's clear cut, Mark. It's clear cut. We give it a space age. We give this white console a space age name. We'll call it the Magnavox Odyssey. But it's quite an interesting little story actually. It is the first ever home games console. But what happened was there was a company called Sanders Associates, which was a US defence contractor. They're now part of BAE Systems. But back in the mid '60s, there was a German engineer who'd fled Germany during the war, who worked for them, and he realised that because everybody was getting TVs in their homes, there was a growing market for something that you connected to your telly that was entertainment products. So he went to his bosses and said, "Oh, can I just have a little lab? I've got an idea." And weirdly, despite this being a defence company, they said, "All right, yeah, go on. You have a little office and a bloke to help you and see what you can come up with." And he came up with this thing that he called it the little brown box because they'd covered it in fake wood effect, as you know,
of course,
as they always used to do with electrical equipment back then.
Yeah.
But they wanted to take it to market, and it's not being Sanders not being a commercial product company. They took it to the TV company called Magnavox, who set about developing it a bit more, and they're the ones who gave it that white packaging that it has there. And then they set about getting a patent for it. And there's this good story that Bayer and Magnavox took it to the patent office, or 1972, and he had the prototype set up in the patent examiner's office. And within about a quarter of an hour, everybody in the building was like forming an orderly queue to come and have a go at it.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So they knew they were onto a winner.
I bet.
There.
Yeah.
And for the early 70s, it actually became the most this arms company. He still owned the copyright to it. It became their most profitable product. Weirdly, yeah. And in the end, they sold 350,000 units of it until they discontinued it in 1975, when obviously technology had moved on. But do you know how much it cost? The RRP of it?
I have to say, my assumption was this is incredibly expensive.
Yeah. Well, $99.95, which in modern money is $620. So that's, yeah.
It's quite a lot.
It's a bit
of money.
more than a PS5, isn't it?
Yeah, it's about 50%, 60% more. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's a wee bit more limited.
Yeah. But but Bayer, he was a bit of a genius inventing stuff, and he basically invented that light gun around the same time. So not only did he come up with the first video games console, he came up with the first peripheral as well.
Which is incredible. Yeah.
So yeah, that's why he's known as the father of video games. But this thing was packaged when they sent it out to the customer. It came with like a series of these overlays that you put on the screen, so although the movement was limited, with these overlays, it kind of looked you could imagine different games with it. So I assume that's probably how the American football one worked. And it also came with things like some cards and dice and scoreboards and things like this. So I guess, yeah, it just requires some creative thinking, because there was actually 28 different games you could play with it overall that came on.
Well, let's be honest, there was one game 28 times, but I mean, no, it is incredible. So actually, this is, it only really just hit the market in general then, had it? This little thing. They must have flown it over quite quick.
Just the month before, Magnavox had done like in November, Magnavox had done a massive publicity blitz to try and sell the console. And they sponsored a weird tie-in. They sponsored Frank Sinatra's television special, Old Blue Eyes Is Back.
Wow.
So in every advert break, there was just loads of advertising for this thing.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
The similarities with Pong are not accidental. So basically, the bloke who owned Atari, he saw this and copied it for his Pong arcade cabinet. So Bayer had to sue him, and he won, came to a settlement, got $1.5 million. And then subsequent to that, a judge ruled in 1977 that any game involving a bat and a ball came under the patent held by Bayer and Magnavox, which meant that they then spent the rest of their careers suing every time anybody released a game with a bat and ball in it and winning.
Wow.
Until the patent expired in 1996. So between 77 and 96, they managed to accrue $100 million in damages and settlements just by suing different companies for breaching their patent.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
What a very liberal judge he got there for us there, man. That's incredible. Wow. Well, what a snazzy business move that is.
Yeah. So that's the jolly story of Mr. Bear and his Magnavox Odyssey.
It's a great bit of kit.
There'll be hits of a different sort this Christmas as well. This sort. Because despite the shortage of cardboard to produce the sleeves and vinyl to actually produce the records themselves, the British recording industry reckon that this Christmas something like 20 million discs will be sold. And this continued interest in buying records means that the industry can pay great attention to improving the quality of the records themselves.
When I was just a boy, I used to cut out classes.
Quite a sound. And yet, when you hear something like that on the radio or the record player, you get no idea of the technological nightmare that went into producing it. And yet, pop music starts very simply. Invariably, it involves one instrument and one voice working out the melody. Take that chap in there, for instance. You're on.
I've been thinking back to times when I was younger than I am. I didn't believe that I'd grow up so soon. I only dreamt of driving trains and riding motorcycles.
Well, promising, I suppose, but he'll never make the top 10. Not without a little echo. How about some bass? Bring in some drums. That's nice. Now we'll fatten up the rhythm section a little bit. Starting to happen now. Why don't we give him another voice? Put in some more guitars. Bring up a little honky-tonk piano. It's really beginning to sound quite nice. How about what I call electric chops? That's not bad at all. Now, like almost all pop recordings, this one was recorded with each part put down separately on a wide 2-inch tape. The job now is to mix all the instruments, all the parts together, to produce the sort of sound that you like to hear. And that's no easy task, because the balance of a top pop changes throughout the number. Occasionally, the bass will have to be brought up, the drums perhaps brought up and then brought gently back again. To the recording engineer who's going to do a good job, balancing a pop record is a feat of dexterity and memory.
Now, I can only imagine that Noddy Holder thanked his lucky stars that this episode of The Tomorrow's World only came out a mere week before Christmas, meaning that Michael Rodd didn't have the chance to storm to number one for Christmas with another absolute hit song of his own composition.
Who knew we would hit any seam of Michael Rodd musical interludes at all in this journey we're on, Ross? This is incredible to come across two of his songs in quite short order. I mean, where do we start? I mean, do you want to start with the segment? Do you want to start with the song? Do you want to start? I mean, how do we break this monstrosity down?
It's in manageable chunks. Well, I don't think much needs describing. Like the invention is a digital mixing desk.
Here's the thing, because this is actually quite boring, yeah. I cannot imagine that you're going to splice in the whole piece. No. For the no. So it's in two halves. The first half is him doing what he did last time we saw him play music or play a song, which is take in and bring back instruments to show how they all get mixed together. But you're right. The second half is where the invention is revealed, and it's a mixing desk with some computer memory. I don't think it can get too far.
Yeah, that's basically it. Yeah. It is. Yeah. Imagine a modern digital mixing desk. It's just whatever the first version of that was, I think.
Yeah, but not as exciting.
No. But what is exciting?
Because there's plenty that's exciting. This is a weird cut and shut job, isn't it? It's like the front half of this car is this sleek, powerful machine, and the back half is like a Robin Reliant or something like that. It's because when it started, I was giddy with excitement. I thought, oh my god, we're going to hear another Michael Rodd song. It's going to be absolutely fantastic. And it just dies a death, isn't it? It becomes really, really dull. But this song, let's start with a really awful segue from the previous segment about the computer games where Raymond Baxter is shooting his door in the face.
Well, Raymond shoots us in the face. He points the gun.
Yeah, that's true. And fires, which I'm not sure you'd get away with these days. And so we hear that kind of Wild West style ricocheting bullets and it cuts to an LP turning on a record player, and Michael Rodd, who looks like he's 60 and trying to pretend that he's younger, even though he's in his 30s, is kind of fingering his way through all the little records and obviously shopping, and he drops on us again. It's another one of these episodes from the 60s and 70s where they just casually relay that there's some kind of horrendous supply issue causing problems everywhere in Britain. Apparently there's not enough card or vinyl to manufacture records and sell them. Who knew? And he just casually throws that away like, oh, well, we all know about the horrific card and vinyl shortage that struck Britain silent. And then he takes us to the studio, and he's in the mixing area of the studio.
Between those 2 points, and this is a bit of a red herring, and it seems slightly unnecessary. It cuts to a sort of status quo-esque, but not as good.
Very quo-esque
band who are obviously singing their newest hit. I don't know whether they're meant to be in the studio or whatever. They're not in the same studio as Rod, though.
Oh no! It looked more like a TV. Like there was all coloured lights and stuff. It was almost like they were trying to pretend that it was on the Earl Grey Whistle Test or something.
But they're singing a song which I could not track down either using Shazam nor just by typing in the lyrics. It's a song about Mr. Guitar Man, but I found several songs called Mr. Guitar Man, but they were not that song. So I don't know who this band is and why they're there, because they're basically stealing thunder from a much better song.
A much better song.
But I don't know whether maybe did the Tomorrow's World people have not enough confidence in Rod's song that they felt the need to add in this extra one? I'm not sure.
It tops and tails the segment completely unnecessarily. I'm assuming it's supposed to be an example of what a well-polished, well-mixed pop song sounds like. And to my ears, it's just a really duff song. Like I did not enjoy it at all. So it's really weird that they go back to it at all. But yeah, and you're right. It absolutely pees all over the attention that Michael Rod's tour de force should really, by all rights, be receiving from us. Because once again, it is another tour de force that once again, clearly is a frightening insight into his psyche.
Yeah, and he does the thing that we talked about in the last episode, where he throws to himself.
He throws to himself, yes, which we love.
Yeah. What did you say? That chap in there, indicating himself in the recording booth. Mm-hmm. And what would you call this song? Is there a Never Have the Chance Again? Was that what you'd call it?
Never Have the Chance Again. Yeah. I mean, shall I go through the lyrics so we can all hear them? I really had to pore over this segment. I was going to do this. You reminded me to do it, actually, and I was really listening hard because obviously there are times when he's talking over his own song because he's trying to explain something about mixing. And I had to really, really listen hard. So there's only one small segment of one line I can't get, but let me talk you through it. So there's only two choruses. It's a wee bit of an illusion, this song. It sounds like it's much longer than it actually is, but they actually just replay it twice. I've been thinking back to times when I was younger than I am. I didn't believe that I'd grow up so soon. I only dreamt of driving trains and riding motorcycles and piloting the first flight to the moon. So it's actually quite a sad start. It's a bit like the last one, the New Technology Blues, where once again he's kind of reflecting on time passing. I don't know why he's so melancholy. But then I met a man who said I'd make an entertainer. What do you do when you're promised everything in the world? Do you jump at the offer and take it, or say no thanks and never have the chance again? And this to me sounds like, it sounds like you're meeting the devil at the crossroads here. Am I wrong?
No,
is this some kind of Faustian pact?
No.
I wondered if this smooth talker was a man who could be trusted. I couldn't believe it was easy as he said, something, tomorrow would be forgotten. Better perhaps to do something else instead. And then we go to the verse again, the chorus rather. But then I met a man who said I'd make an entertainer. What do you do when you're promised everything in the world? Do you jump at the offer and take it, or say no thanks and never have the chance again? I mean, I don't know what we're supposed to take away from this. But it makes me feel very sad.
It seems clear to me, Mark. It seems clear to me that when he was younger, some smooth-talking record exec or producer or talent scout or something offered him the chance to be in a band or something like that, probably at the height of the 60s, and he decided to take the sensible option and become a journalist or TV presenter or however he started out. And it's him sort of.
It's regret. Is that what you're saying? This is a song about regret.
Yes, because I think the key line here, because you might think that he's an entertainer now because he's presenting TV.
Yeah, that's how I initially picked it up. I thought, which is ironic because this is not entertaining at all.
I think the key line here is tomorrow would be forgotten.
That's
so
true.
If he'd taken this job from the smooth talking man, tomorrow's world tomorrow would be forgotten because he would not be on Tomorrow's World. He'd be this musician. That's my interpretation
Which is what
of the lyrics.
I think that's a really great shout, to be honest. Because I took it as some kind of really weird way of saying like, oh, you know, I wanted to do really normal things, and then somebody said I could be a TV presenter. No, I think that's a really good read. That's actually a really good reading of the lyrics. This is a pie into opportunities passed up, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. And he's never had the chance again, except in these little these little things he's slipping into.
Except he simply can't stop singing.
I wonder how many of these we're going to stumble across. You know,
I hope these are not the only two.
I hope there's enough for us to release an album.
I was thinking the same thing, but here's how we get this song out of this clip without his voiceover. I don't know.
Well, we'd
it's
have to
such a shame
for a mixing desk, Mark.
Oh, well done. We're back on track there, aren't we? I suppose because we do have to talk about because the song is brilliant. Well, the song's not brilliant. The song is great, but it is in service of a really boring segment. I mean, it cannot be overemphasized how dull this.
I think
ultimately because it's so long.
Yeah, and I think part of it is that nothing that he's describing is revelatory to us because it's run of the mill. All it is, it's just this new mixing desk is just as a memory in it.
Same as the old one, absolutely. Tables keep track.
Really taking his time to describe it in detail, and
painful detail,
and
repetitious.
He clearly has quite a strong interest in how music is mixed because he essentially does exactly the same description that he did in the episode from the future, where he describes how you can bring the different instruments in and out.
Absolutely on your 3D hollow TV.
Yes, yeah. I mean, there's a couple of little bits that I enjoyed. There's a bit where he talks about bringing in what he calls electric chops, and then he puts his hands in like a karate chop pose, which I thought was good. And then there's, I know you noticed this, the actual new mixing desk that he's got has the two largest plugs in it I've ever seen in any piece of equipment.
They are fabulous.
They're like they're kind of like serial cables that you used to get in the back of a computer.
Like the size of two men's fists.
It's the size, yeah.
Yeah. They're absolutely fabulous.
God knows the amount of blips and bloops that are going through it. Or
what does he say?
Bleeps.
Dots and bleeps, which is like that's not how this works, Michael.
He describes binary as dots and bleeps. That's not that's Morse code. No. That's Morse code.
Yeah, they're absolutely huge. The bit I liked is the quote unquote proper rock song, which plays between him being in the record shop at the beginning to introduce the piece and then it cutting to him in the studio. He diegetically turns the music off by flipping a switch. And then with a face of absolute seriousness that really reminded me of Shaw Taylor from Police 5, he says quite a sound, like they've committed a crime. And I pissed myself laughing. Like there is no joy in his face whatsoever.
You mentioned the thing about the shortages at the beginning of this. I looked into this, and then it became clear to me, as soon as I looked into it, I thought, oh, of course, it's our old friend, the oil crisis again.
I thought that might be true of vinyl. I didn't know where the card thing came in. And this is something that hadn't occurred to me either. The reason vinyl is called vinyl is because it's polyvinyl chloride, which, as we know PVC,
in all other uses, PVC. And in order to make PVC, you need benzene, which comes from oil. This actually caused like a massive problem in the record industry at the time. And I was looking at there's a couple of New York Times articles from 1973 I was looking at, and they were saying, they suspect that this might mean that record executives will take less risks on artists. Because if they've got a finite amount of vinyl, they're not going to take a punt on somebody that won't sell because they'll have a load of wasted vinyl.
They need a guarantee. They need a guarantee seller. That's interesting.
So then I thought, that's quite interesting because I wonder if anybody's ever done a study into how the oil crisis affected the pop charts and things like that, or music in general, because you don't think about these sort of knock-on effects.
No.
But then, other things they were doing was they made the records lower quality. So a normal record is between 120 and 140 grams. They were shaving them down to 80 grams. And apparently, according to some record collectors, although this is slightly a dispute, but some record collectors reckon this made the records worse quality because apparently the heavier the vinyl, the better the sound. And I found some bloke on a record collector's website, on a forum, talking about this. And he reckons the most extreme example of this is Genesis's 1973 single, I Know What I Like, brackets, In Your Wardrobe, which contains so little vinyl that it was little better than a flexi disc in quality. And he also reckons that sometimes they use these recycled records to make the new records, and sometimes you'd find old bits of label stuck in the surface of your record.
Oh wow, okay.
But I mean, that's some bloke on a forum, so you never know how you take it with a pinch of salt.
Nah.
But the cardboard shortage is also because of the oil crisis. Because of the oil crisis, Britain was working on a 3-day week, which meant they weren't pumping out enough packaging from the cardboard factories.
Okay.
So there's a shortage of packaging in all sorts, like in food and everything.
Full stop.
Yeah. And I looked into mixing desks. Well, I didn't really look into mixing desks because we all know what mixing desks are. But yeah, they still use both digital and analog ones. So they still use the giant one that uses there because you get a better sound, more immediate sound out of them. But I've always wondered, have you not looked at those and gone, there can't possibly be that many things to change about music that they need that many knobs and that many sliders? Or is it just because I'm deaf? I don't appreciate sound that much.
Well, but you are half deaf. But I do agree with you that it's entirely unnecessary. There's let's get there. Let's be honest here. It's only you and I talking about that is just to make everyone else go ooh.
Yeah, it's a type of gatekeeping, isn't it? It's to make it look like your job's more complicated. No, it's like
absolutely
when people use acronyms in industries.
Yes, absolutely.
People out, and make it sound like you're doing more important than you are.
The thing is, like the sliders are really genuinely impressive enough. And actually, as I said in the notes, is like going using the word diegetic again. Rod is leading us to believe that as he fades up and down, as he pushes them up and down the faders, that the sound he's hearing in the studio is the one we're hearing at home. And of course, that is absolutely not true at all. That is not how television worked in the 1970s on film. So that means that somebody, whilst they're editing this show, must have been manually mixing the sound to match his fingers, which to me is the secret star of the show, whoever did that, because that's an incredibly impressive skill.
Yeah. Oh, hang on. There's one more thing about vinyl that I wanted to say.
Oh, yeah?
I went and saw The Many Saints of Newark the other week, which isn't very good.
Any good?
It's not very good.
No,
especially
the reviews are appalling.
The Sopranos recently.
Which a lot of people are doing.
But there was one scene in it, and I thought, hang on a minute, they've made a mistake here. So there's a bit where, I think it's Tony, but one of the characters anyway, is standing in front of a record shop, and it's meant to be, I think it's meant to be the early 70s, maybe around this period actually. And the record shop, it's got one of those, it's got an awning on it, and it says bought and sold, and then it's got a list of the things it sells, and it says like LPs, 8 tracks, and then it says vinyls, plural. Now, no one, until millennials came along and started buying records, no one has ever described a record in the plural as vinyls. It's only vinyl.
I agree, but is this not the one of the weird peculiarities, one of the weird differences between American English and British English is the use of collective nouns? So is that, so the thing that's always confusing is like when they talk about a team, they will refer to Arsenal, for example. They will treat the word Arsenal as a singular noun. So Arsenal is, whereas like we have a kind of a collective noun phrase. So because we were referring to a team, a collective of people, we would say Arsenal are doing X, Y, and Z, but they always do is. They always treat it like it's a singular. And in general, you ignore it, but every now and then it sounds so weird and clumsy. Is that what this is, or is it just somebody screwing up because it's kind of a hipster terminology?
I think what it is because young people these days, youngsters, the kids today, they will say...
Who are obviously listening to Tomorrow's World all the time.
They will say, rather than saying, like, I have 12 records, they will happily say,
I have 12 vinyls.
I have 12 vinyls, right?
Wow,
so I reckon
ever heard that.
Whoever was set decorating or doing that
is
a youngster, and they've gone, oh, right, they had records back then, I'll just put vinyls, even though nobody back then said that. That's my theory.
It sounds like you're adding E to the end of potato, doesn't it?
Yeah. But I mean, if any Americans want to write in and correct me, but
please do.
Yeah. Or if the set decorator of Many Saints of Newark wants to write in.
Definitely listening.
Yeah. Well, Tomorrow's World Audit Time at gmail.com. Let us know.
Yeah.
time of the year has always marked the beginning of the winter sports season in Switzerland, when whole families dust off their skis and sharpen their skates and head for the hills and the frozen lakes. But it looks as if even that timeless tradition is in for a change, because now, somewhat ironically, in a country which has no shortage of snow and ice, the Swiss have developed a new material that's going to take the sharpening out of skates and the ice out of skating. Well, I won't try to emulate Anita because my total experience on skates is about 3 hours. We're in Lausanne, where they've recently built themselves a splendid community sports centre, including this skating rink. But it's a skating rink with a difference. It looks like ice, it even feels like ice, but it's not. It's a new plastic substitute. There have, of course, been attempts at various forms of plastic ice in the past, but they've all had problems for one reason or another. This one was developed by a local ice hockey team trainer who wanted to give his team somewhere to train all the year round cheaply, and conventional ice rinks were far too expensive. He started with the boot. The blades of normal boots and plastic have never gone very well together. The edges carve up the surface, and so much friction is generated between the blade and the plastic surface that the boots get incredibly hot. So he produced this. Blade on wheels. The uppers are exactly the same. This is a rigid plastic frame holding 5 wheels. Again, plastic with metal rims. And the wheels are so arranged that they reproduce exactly the subtle curvature of the normal skating blade. At any one time, only 2 wheels are touching the surface. Perhaps you can just see that if I put it on here. There. Now, only those 2 wheels are touching. The net result is that the wheeled boots mimic almost exactly the feel of normal ice skates. Certainly the ice skating team said that after a few minutes you don't notice the difference, and they didn't inhibit Anita's performance. And for me, well, they feel about the same, a bit wobbly. The floor is built up from these tiles, 20 centimetres square by 10 millimetres thick. And they're made of a new plastic called polystyrol, very, very hard and durable. In fact, it was specially designed for the purpose to cope with the pressures produced by the wheeled boot. The tiles clip onto a rigid aluminium subframe.
There was something I forgot to mention in the previous Willy Woolly segments that I think should be added to the audit, Mark.
Okay.
And that's that William Woollard visits the most glamorous location of the episode.
Yeah.
Because once again, he's bagged a free holiday to Switzerland. Well, but Raymond's not even left his house. And Michael Rod's presumably, I don't know, in a BBC recording studio or somewhere like that.
Oh no, it'll be a recording studio run coin.
Yeah, and this is the second of Woolly's segments from Switzerland, and he turns up James Bond style on a snowmobile, a skidoo, sporting a lovely woolly hat. I don't know whether the weather's taken a turn for the colder since he was shoveling snow earlier, but he's got a lovely Willy Woolly hat on.
Well done, Russell. You're very pleased with that when you wrote it earlier.
Well, I was thinking it could become a line of merch that we sell, Mark. Our CW Audit Time shop.
Definitely. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Oh, which is coming, guys. It's a really fascinating piece, isn't it? And it's something that we've kind of seen slightly before, but this is easily the most extreme version of this. And what this is them going to share a new development or a new technology with us when in fact they are describing something, or they throw away describe something that is actually the revolutionary new technology. That's a really clumsy way of explaining
They
it.
essentially, in describing one technology, they gloss over the actual technology that then goes on to become the one that we all know is used.
He's in Switzerland to talk about a new plastic surface that allows Swiss winter sports teams and individuals to practice ice skating or ice hockey all year round without recourse to having to use kind of, an expensive indoor ice rink that, obviously costs a fortune to heat in the summer. And he goes in depth, doesn't he? He goes in depth to talk about this surface, and he shows how you can take little small segments of it and, replace it if something cracks. And yet, when it cuts to that surface, the first thing I notice, and you must have been the same thing, when we see this skater, this wonderful, elegant skater on this ice rink, this fake ice rink, the first thing I noticed was she was wearing rollerblades.
Yeah.
And and they are absolutely phenomenal. They are doing such a good job. Willy Woolly even describes how, in the process of inventing this plastic surface, the trainer of a local Lausanne ice hockey team first created the rollerblades in order for, so that he wasn't using, ice blades to cut up his new plastic surface. I said, it's like, stop right there. You've done it. That's it. You've done what you need to do. It's fascinating how they, obviously, I don't know how the BBC research department works. I don't know how they found out about this, except that Willy Woolly clearly wanted to go to Switzerland, so they were trying to crowbar in his. He wanted to do things. He wanted to do two things. He wanted to go to Switzerland, and he wanted to create a backdoor pilot for Top Gear. So let's see how we can enable that on the BBC's dime.
What Woolly wants, Woolly gets.
What Woolly wants, Woolly gets. Yeah, and it's just amazing that obviously the guy said, "Hey, you've got to cut." Guys, you got to come see my new plastic surface. And somebody's invented the rollerblades. It's incredible.
Yeah. It's quite Woolly claims to have only had 3 hours practice on these rollerblades. He did a reasonable job. I don't think I could skate quite as proficiently after 3 hours practice on these rollerblades. There is a segment where he looks remarkably like Frank Spencer, perhaps expecting him to go zooming off the edge down a ski jump, fly across somewhere and grab onto the back of a speeding snowplough or something like that. But it's an incredible demonstration of he clutches boringness out of something that could be quite exciting. They could have had a hockey team zooming around on rollerblades on there, or
absolutely,
more figure skaters or anything like that.
Yeah.
Instead, we get him squatting next to the floor, showing us the underside of some plastic tiling.
Absolutely correct. Yeah, and it's exciting television as that sounds like. The one thing I'd say is that the borderline kind of klutzy quality is that actually his genuine childish joy at his inability to stop and arrive at the section where he has the plastic things to demonstrate is as fun to watch as Raymond Baxter laughing in his daughter's face when he's slaughtering her at Pong. He's having a great time. He is having a great time.
Probably the only time we ever see Woolly a little unsteady on his feet, actually. He's normally extraordinarily strident and confident, isn't he?
He's normally well put together, isn't he?
He's a little bit wobbly, showing his vulnerable side to us for once this Christmas.
It's the second of 3 Christmas miracles for us.
Yeah. I was quite interested to discover, and it makes sense now that I know this, but you would think I would have found this out already, that ice skating, by and large, is a Dutch invention. They reckon that the Finns probably came up with it the very first, when it first was invented, but the Dutch have been doing it since 800 AD. And the word skate is a corruption of the Dutch word skaats, which it's somehow connected to the shank bone. It's something that has something connected to the shank bone, and because the original ice skates were made with sharpened shank bones
that's interesting.
On their boots. But the Dutch, obviously, because there's water everywhere. When winter come around in the Middle Ages, everyone ice skated everywhere because it's like a really quick way of getting around. So like if you were like a farmer trying to get to market, just put everything on skates and skate to market.
Well, as a Winter Olympic aficionado, I don't think the Dutch are terribly good at ice dancing or ice skating. What they are very good at do is short track speed skating, which is just one of the most incredible sports at any Olympics. They are, you'll see them in their orange just absolutely rip apart the ice, going quicker and quicker and faster and faster. And I know the BBC always explain it, and that's because when the canals freeze over, every little Dutch kid is tearing up and down those frozen canals every winter.
Did you see that bloke last year who he was just in his pants And he's
No.
So you see that? I think it made the news over your way. He's skating in his pants, and the ice just completely gives way underneath him.
Oh, yes. Do you know what? Actually,
He just goes straight
funnily
into the
enough,
water. Here he goes. Whee!
I saw that yesterday. Yeah, absolutely. I did. I was thinking something last year. It's like I've only just seen it this year. Yeah, no, I have, and because he absolutely just vanishes into the canal. Yeah.
Oh, that must be cold. Okay, so I don't know whether the reason why, because they're not called rollerblades. Rollerblades is a trademark. So they're
Inline skates.
Inline skates is what they're known as, and they do have a bit of a history. So maybe they'd seen them before and they thought they weren't worth talking about as much. I don't know, because apparently they reckon that the original roller skates were inline skates. It's only that because they were harder to skate on.
Yeah, that they were shifted to be next to each other.
Yeah, because there's reference made to them by a London stage performer in 1743, but no one knows.
Wow.
No one knows what their name was. But the first patented set was by a bloke called Robert John Tyers in 1823 in London. I saw a picture of them. They're called the Rollitos. And it's like a single row of brass wheels that you attach to the bottom of your shoe. But then, over the years, they've tried releasing different inline skates. These ones, around this time, I don't know whether these are the same ones, but there was a set of them called Skeelers, which were based on a design by the Russian hockey team, Olympic hockey team. And they tried selling them, and they got Lionel Blair to publicise them. Lionel Blair, R.I.P.
Rest in peace. Yeah.
But I mean, they didn't really. Over the years, they've didn't really sell many until the rollerblade company came along, and they worked out to give them those sort of polyurethane. The sort of skateboard style tough. Wheels.
Yeah.
So they released in 1987, and then it blew up, and then the rollerblading craze, as we know it, went on. I always think the rollerblade is probably the most 90s of all transport, mechanisms, isn't it? But I mean, you still see quite a lot of Dutch people rollerblading, but because it's it's flat here, and they love ice skating.
Oh, true. Well, I was about to say, but the difference is, they ice skate in the winter, so fair enough. You're keeping their eye in.
Yeah.
I can't imagine they're rollerblading, imagining they're in the body form ad from the 1990s, like you or I would.
Yeah, and they don't tend to be like greased up and shirtless like you imagine Americans always are when they do it.
No, that's true. In Muscle Beach or whatever it is.
A couple of rollerblading records. So the first man to circumnavigate the globe under his own steam was a man called Jason Lewis in 1996, and he decided to cross the United States on rollerblades. So he set off from Fort Lauderdale. Unfortunately, when he got to Colorado, he got hit by a car and broke both his legs. So he had to go to hospital. But then once he got out of hospital, he then continued the journey. So he did the journey in 9 months. But then 2012, a lady called Casey Fisher, she became the fastest person to ever do the trip from Florida to California. It only took her 47 days to rollerblade across the whole of the USA. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's quite quick, yeah.
But yes,
I mean, you can fly it in 5 hours.
There's some quite hilly bits in the middle. Imagine rollerblading up a mountain. It'd be a nightmare, wouldn't it?
I don't want to imagine it, Ross. It's not my bag. Have you ever been rollerblading?
No, I don't have the balance for that sort of thing. I went ice skating once in Nottingham when I was a student, and I couldn't let go of the rail at any point, and there was just loads of children pointing and laughing at me. It was miserable, and the boots were really uncomfortable. And I just kept fearing to losing my fingers. I don't understand why more fingers. Why more fingers?
No. You were absolutely correct, because I've been ice skating once at the Natural History Museum, and I went with, I don't know, it was probably one of our first Christmas dates, myself and my now wife, and all I could think about was losing my fingers, because you were absolutely guaranteed to fall over. Yeah. And of course, you got to put your hands down in that cold ice, and it doesn't take much for someone who's basically skating on knives to slice your fingers. That's all I could think about was losing my fingers. Yeah, no, you're absolutely spot on.
I mean, I suppose the only benefit is that they always say that if you lose a finger, you should pack it in ice. So at least you're on the ice already. So it's going to possibly preserve it.
You're right, but of course, if you don't go on the ice, you don't get them sliced off and need the ice to preserve them, Russ.
Speaking of the ice, this is actually what Willy's concentrating on. It was only a few years after this, in 1982, that somebody came up with a plastic ice rink that you can actually use normal skates on. You don't need the rollerblades anymore. Yeah, it was cool, and it's made of interlocking panels just like this. The first iteration of it, they sprayed like lube all over it, so people like skating about on the lube. But these days, the modern surfaces are so good that you can just they're so hard and so good you can just glide around on normal skates. Much as like they're still a bit hard on the skates. More than 2 hours, and then you're probably wearing your blades out. But there's lots of different companies that sell them. There's a company called Glice, there's Extra Ice, and then there's a USA company called Polyglide, who were on Shark Tank, which is the American version of Dragon's Den. And if you go to their website, you can get yourself an 8-foot by 16-foot starter rink that you can put in your back garden, and that'll cost you $1,500. And they reckon it's about 90% as slippery as actual ice.
That's not bad.
That's not bad.
It's £1,500. I suppose, if you have somebody who's good at ice skating, why wouldn't you get something?
I bet Torval and Dean have probably got one in their back garden, assuming they live together.
Of course they do, Russ. Yeah, in her house with her husband in Tunbridge Wells. Yeah.
Oh, is that where they live?
They don't live together.
Is that where she lives?
That's where Jane Torval did. Yeah.
I bet Dean was reasonably nearby. Probably was in Sevenoaks or something.
I don't know. I think they didn't get on. Isn't that one of the... Yeah, well, not that they didn't get on, but like they weren't like in love with each other and best buddies. They were just... Part of what made them work was their utter professionalism with each other. Yeah. Also, they left and then saw other people because, they were sick of each other.
like a reverse of Strictly Come Dancing then, really, isn't it?
Yes, the curse of Torval and Dean, which is a very, very hyper-focused on the two of them.
In the first half of this year, our wine consumption in this country was 26% up on last year. Now, a connoisseur would certainly rack his wines according to their vineyard of origin, because the temperature at which they are stored can be just as important as the temperature at which they are actually served. So let's have a look round. Now, that one, for instance, is a little too cold. And that one is on the warm side. Let's try one over here. That one is absolutely right. And all I'm doing is looking at that label. The label is coated with heat-sensitive crystals derived from cholesterol. They change colour with very small temperature changes. Red means too cold, green too hot, but blue indicates the selected temperature, and as you can just see perhaps, that label is blue. You can get them to cover almost any temperature range, and of course the applications are legion. You could even use them for testing the temperature of babies in an incubator without disturbing the poor little thing. Now down here, it's 14 degrees centigrade, and frankly that doesn't mean very much to me. I still tend to think in terms of Fahrenheit, and so I believe to most people in this country. Of course, centigrade is the new standard, and it is more convenient. But to convert Fahrenheit to centigrade, you have to take away 32, multiply by 5, and divide by 9, which is quite complicated. And so, to help overcome this problem, we're going to launch a competition. The idea is to invite you to compose a rhyme to jog the memory. You know the kind of thing, 30 days hath September, April, June, and November. That's basic. Now, the British Standards Institution tells us that all is required is temperatures in degrees C linked with familiar things in the rhyme, like 0 degrees C is freezing, 100 is boiling, but what's the temperature of a hot day or a lukewarm cup of tea or whatever? That's the object of the exercise, to make those associations familiar. So, your rhymes, please, on a postcard, to reach us not later than 12th night, that's January the 6th. And the address, Centigrade Competition, Tomorrow's World, BBC Television, London W12 8QT. We'll be announcing the winner in a subsequent edition of Tomorrow's World, of course, and the prize, well, if it's a really good rhyme, immortality. And with that, until Thursday, January the 3rd at 7 o'clock, good night.
I'd absolutely love a wine cellar, wouldn't you, Mark?
I would love a wine cellar.
I mean, or just any sort of cellar, just a cellar you could go down and, with a few cobwebs in it, and you could keep stuff in there, and it smells a little bit damp. Love that.
No, I can't say I agree with
Right.
you there, Russ. My gut instinct tells me that if it's not a wine cellar, it's a haunted cellar. It's complete black and white, binary. If it's not full of wine, it's full of ghosts. And I'm going to have no truck with that.
You can split the difference and have a Fritzl cellar.
Was that a cellar or was that more of a
Oh,
basement?
yeah, no, that's more of an extension, isn't it, really? I don't know. But yeah, no, I don't know how long the wine would last in my cellar, but
Well, clearly it'll be drunk, much like in my wine cellar. It'll be they will not be gathering cobwebs like they are in Baxter's.
also, as my wine is always bought in boxes, cardboard boxes.
A damp, musty cellar is not its friend.
Well.
Yeah.
But Raymond appears to have quite a selection of vintage bottles because it's very dusty and cobwebby down there.
It is definitely.
Apart from this mysterious bottle that he pulls out, absolutely pristine, which has a
Yes, it
which
is.
has a very sloppily applied label on it, which Raymond claims is temperature sensitive. The colour changes according to the temperature.
To illustrate this, he goes to his cellar. He pulls out 3 bottles. One, and this is very like the Goldilocks and the Three Bears here. The first one he pulls out is too hot.
Yeah.
The second one he pulls out is too cold. But the third one is just right.
Yeah.
And what's fascinating is that when he pulls out the two, when he goes, no, that's not the right temperature, that's too hot, he immediately puts it back exactly where he pulled it from.
Yeah.
When he pulls out the second one, he goes, no, that's too cold. He immediately puts it back exactly where he could have swapped them. He could have gone, I need to correct this. I need to swap these around. But he pulls out the third one, and it's absolutely perfect because, Russ, as you rightly point out, there is a label on this wine bottle that is not glowing. It is blue, indicating that it is just the right temperature for that bottle of wine to be stored.
Yes.
However, I've got some doubts here. I've got some serious doubts here. I'm not saying Raymond Baxter's a liar, but I'm not saying he's a truth teller either.
All right, Oz Clark, don't blind me with wine science here. What do you mean? Why do you think it's? Why do you have your doubts?
I think. Well, let me just check my notes because I think he says that. So this label has been. I don't have any doubts with the idea that he's talking about, the concept. My doubt is the legitimacy of the execution, and why I say that is because when he talks about the fact that correct me if I'm wrong, the label turns red when the wine is stored too warm and turns green when it's stored too cold, and blue indicates it's absolutely right. We don't see, so when he pulls out the wine bottle, and in theory he's looking at the label, we don't see that it's red.
No.
When he pulls out the bottle that's too cold, and he looks at it, he goes, that's too cold. We don't see that it's green. We do see the blue one. And the only thing I can liken it to, in theory, is those little black strips your mum would put on your forehead to find out whether you had a fever or not. To see whether you were lying about being ill and wanting to stay home to secretly watch, I don't know, This Morning or something like that instead of going to school. This doesn't have that same look. It looks like somebody has painted something blue over a square of masking tape. And they couldn't be bothered painting red and green. And the thing is, because the blue is so vibrant, he even has this little line. He goes like, maybe, hopefully you can see this on camera. Of course I can fucking see it on camera. It's the bluest thing I've ever seen in my life. And I've just painted me and my wife just painted our bedroom blue, and this wine bottle is bluer than that blue. So it's not. I think something may well exist, but it's not on this wine bottle in his cellar.
No.
Russ. That's what I'm positive.
Yes, no, you're right. It's a very, very glossy blue.
Very glossy blue. You can see the paint. You can see the brush strokes.
And also, obviously, the reason people keep wine in a cellar, not only because it's a cool place, but because because it's underground, the temperature remains constant.
It's constant, winter and summer.
So why 3 bottles that are no more than 2 feet away from each other would all be registering separate temperatures is insane.
Extremely different temperatures, yes.
And also, it's a mixture of red and white wine, which are both served at entirely different temperatures. And he pulls out a white wine And we subsequently find out when Raymondo goes over to his thermometer that he's got hanging up in this basement that it is a balmy 14 degrees Celsius in this basement. Which is surprisingly warm for the 20th of December. And also far too warm for white wine. So that's definitely not the right temperature.
It's boiling in there. I mean, if you were down there, Russ, there'd be ne'er a strip of clothes on you.
I'd
so
be
hot.
sweating absolute bullets.
Absolutely.
Although he's still wearing his lovely snug jumper.
He is. And I want to say, I think this is the proper example of Woolarding. As he walks towards the wine, he comes in camera right, and he kind of leans down in, and he immediately props his leg up unnecessarily on something we can't see, and starts describing in detail the storage of the wine. That, my friend, is Woolarding.
That big old Baxter leg that goes right up there. You could,
Oh, huge! Yeah, thank God it wasn't a 3D TV.
I mean, if I ever need to measure any right angles in the near future, I'll be firing that episode up and lining him up with his leg there. I think that's the perfect way of measuring them. But I think, to be honest, I think this wine testing has just been thrown together as a sort of like a good way of segueing into what is really the sort of the meat of this segment, which is a competition time. I don't think we've not had a competition before, have we? And
none of the episodes we've looked at so far. No. First competition, incredibly exciting.
But this is obviously the early 70s. We're very much in the Britain's testing the waters in terms of metrication. Is it metrication? Is that what you say? Decimalisation and entering the metric system and things like this. Metricisation? I don't know.
I'm going to say metricism.
Yes, but there's
metrification probably.
There's no metric martyrs at the time. There's no people complaining about the introduction of new units yet. It's all new and fun. And Raymond wants us to, obviously Fahrenheit and Celsius are laughably incompatible systems. And I'm fascinated by anybody that still uses Fahrenheit. The only reason I think Fahrenheit still exists is because it's really impressive to say a sunny day is like nearly approaching 100 degrees. I can't imagine any reason why anybody would ever use it.
I mean, I never learned Fahrenheit. I genuinely have no connection to it whatsoever. Because I have to say, as I said to you in the notes, is like when he describes his cellar as being 14 degrees, I was genuinely gobsmacked because I was shocked that he used centigrade. I was expecting him to say, I don't know, 60, and for me they go like, what the hell temperature is that? But then he immediately goes like, well, I don't know what that means, which obviously is the whole point of this exercise. But I like the fact that he goes, actually centigrade does make more sense. And it does, boiling point of water 100, freezing point of water 0.
Exactly.
A litre of water weighs a kilogram.
Yes.
It's all connected. Yes. Like it all makes sense. Like once you know,
a litre of water is 10 centimetres by 10 centimetres by 10 centimetres.
Yes, absolutely. That's right. It's 10 centimetres cubed. It's such a smart system and everything's connected. Brilliant. Well done, the French. And but I genuinely have no connection to Fahrenheit whatsoever. So I do agree with you. I do think people really like talking about like a sunny day being 90 degrees. But one of the reasons it has power is because for most people, 90 degrees is the boiling point of water. Almost the boiling point is when water starts
so it
boiling.
Makes it sound really hot, doesn't it?
So it's not just hot, but like terminally hot.
I know the hottest temperature I've ever experienced in real life in outdoors was me and my university chums once drove to the centre of Death Valley, and the temperature reading on the car we were in, it read 120 degrees Fahrenheit. I'm just going to check what that is in Celsius.
Please do.
And somebody was walking their dog. That's 49 degrees Celsius.
49 degrees C. Unbelievable.
But if you say, it was 49 degrees, it's much less impressive than say it's 120 degrees, isn't it?
Oh, I mean, I get your point, but I also completely disagree. If you tell me that you were somewhere that was 49 degrees C, that sounds horrifically hot, Russ, because I understand centigrade. Yeah, of course it was. Thank God your air. You said somebody was out walking a dog.
Walking their dog.
You'd get prosecuted for leaving a dog in a car that was nearly that hot. Bloody hell! I hope they shaved the dog before they went out.
But yeah,
49 degrees
I have
C.
no idea I don't know what boiling point is in Fahrenheit. I don't know what freezing point is in Fahrenheit. Do you?
Russell, I do, because I prepared a entry to this competition.
Oh yes, of course.
But I didn't know until today.
Yes. Well, okay. Well, so how order should we do this in? Shall I tell you about Raymond's invention and then we go into our...
Oh, yeah. Please. Oh, no, absolutely. I have to say, I need to put that to bed before we can have fun, because I think the technology, the idea is sound, but you surely what I saw was a pack of lies.
Yes. I mean, so the label... I mean, Raymond doesn't really explain much about it, but it's almost certainly the thing he's describing is it describes technically as thermochromatic. The colour is affected by heat, and you can use two things. You can use either liquid crystals, but they're quite high tech, or you can use things called leuco dyes. And leuco dyes, we all remember, as we are people the age we are, as global hypercolour. It is exactly the same technology as global hypercolour. And it's essentially, all it is it's a chemical reaction which is impregnated in whatever it is, the dye, the cloth, the paint, whatever. But it's a reversible chemical reaction. So if you heat it up, the chemical reaction goes one way, and if you cool it down, it goes the other way. And one way is one colour, the other way is the other colour. That's all it is. And obviously, so basically everything that we know that changes colour with heat is based on this. I used to have some really cool Matchbox cars. I don't know whether you ever had them, that were treated with this. So you drive them around, and you drive them in the bath, and they change colour. They were great fun.
No, that sounds really cool.
Because you could drive them halfway in the bath, and they'd be halfway one colour the other.
Oh, obviously people love those mugs, don't they?
Yes.
Where you pour tea or coffee in, and a message appears.
Yeah, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And the Duracell batteries, they have that little the little indicator.
The register of power. Yeah.
I didn't realise this, but that's also this, because all you're doing is you're connecting the two terminals, and it's the current's going through it is very slightly heating up the dye, and so the dye changes colour, and that's why.
So the more in the battery, the stronger the current, the warmer it gets. Yeah. Oh, that's interesting.
And then Celsius is named after the Swedish astronomer Anders Celsius, but he called it the centigrade system, which is what Raymond calls it here.
Yes.
But no one uses centigrade anymore. No one calls it centigrade. And in fact...
Not really, no.
In fact, it was officially renamed Celsius in 1948 by the powers that be.
Oh.
Whatever Frenchmen are in charge of the metric system. And their secrets.
Ian Metric, probably, or Frank Metric. Their secret metric base. Buried somewhere under the rose line.
Yeah. But for some reason, the British were very reluctant to rename it Celsius for a long time. And the BBC only officially started calling it Celsius in 1985. So we called it centigrade for a long time.
Wow. Wonder why the reluctance. I mean, like, if it's renamed, it's renamed.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's not like they still talk about marathon bars and EastEnders out of some kind of...
No, I don't know. Oh, but the other thing is that Celsius, the man, when he invented the system, he had it the other way round. So 0 degrees was boiling point and 100 degrees was freezing point, which seems like an insane thing to do. Because,
fair enough.
In 1743, it's not like he had freezers. So why would you ever want to go...
Can you imagine though the first time?
Point?
No, exactly. It was like, can you imagine that the first time he said, "I've got a new system," and someone going, "That's really brilliant. Look, Tony, I have one note." What is it? Love it. Flip reverse, my friend. You got yourself something there. No way. Get out of here.
Yeah.
Oh, what a loon.
But yeah, so obviously I don't have no idea whether we'll be. I didn't really know how I could find out the winners of this competition, or indeed any of the entrants.
You break my heart.
I mean, maybe if we find, I don't know, if we somehow found the episode of Tomorrow's World from. He said the results will be. His closing date was 12th night, didn't he?
Yeah, 6th of Jan.
So what we need to do is try and track down an episode from early 1974 to see whether he announced the results.
Sometime in, I would imagine, January or February, like late Jan, early Feb, probably. Yeah.
Right, well, that'll have to be our mission. But
that'd be great if you could.
Until now,
that's a tough ask, isn't it?
Until now, we will have to rely on our own contributions. Now, I don't know how long it took you to do this, Mark. It took me about 20 minutes to do mine, I would say.
Yeah, on and off. Yeah, I think so. Immortality awaits one of us, Russ.
Yes, yeah.
Do you want to go first, or shall I?
I think mine
Is yours shorter than
mine
mine?
ends on quite a good segue to the next segment. So I think maybe.
Perfect.
All right, do
then.
yours first.
Okay, so here's my entry. I expect every granny in 1973 will be, will be learning this and remembering it. One of these systems just doesn't make sense. So let this quick guide make you feel less tense. Because to know the difference between an F or a C, I've written this hopefully useful ditty. Room temperature starts at F68. That's 20 degrees C. Doesn't that just feel great? To clean your clothes, that was 104. Now it's 40 degrees and less of a chore. It was a cold day in England when it hit 32. Now it's 0 degrees and there's gritting to do. After all our hard work, let's finish with tea. What was 212 is now 100 degrees C. But really, to know the difference between an F and a C, just open your phone and Google. Easy? C.
Oh, excellent, Mark. Excellent. That is
Thank you.
lovely. I like the gritter bit. I think is my favourite bit there.
Well, I tried to tie it in with the rest of the episode.
Yeah, right. Well, my one.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to do an impression, but my one I've done it. I've tried to do in the style of in the voice of Raymond Baxter himself.
Oh, brilliant!
But it's as if Raymond Baxter has invented a new type of music that won't be won't be popularised until several years later after this episode. So,
Russ, are you going to rap?
Here we go.
Okay.
I'm Raymond B, and I'm here to say I'm measuring heat in a modern way. Don't use Fahrenheit, it's total whack. Use centigrade, it's got your back. Anders Celsius was the inventor's name, and his simple scale has changed the game. Want a cup of tea? Go boil your water. To 100 degrees, it won't get no hotter. Ice cube, iced tea, they owe it all to me. They keep their first names at 0 degrees C. 37.5 is human body heat. More than 70 will have cooked your meat. What temperature should you set your heating? 20 degrees takes one hell of a beating. So that's a scale, and that's my rhyme. Now let's move on to the audit time.
Oh, outstanding work. Oh, I love how ours are both completely different. Oh, brilliant. Anyway, audit time, shall we?
Yes.
Well, Russell, tradition dictates you start by giving us a bit of context. Tell us about the cinema box office. Now, I think at this time, it's basically the year, isn't it? It's not like the week or the month. It's the year. But seeing as this is the 20th of December, it actually would be the end of the year.
Yes, yeah. So we can think of this as an end-of-year roundup. And also, I could only find it for the USA. So, I mean, this is...
Fabulous.
This is wildly...
Our system is flawed, Russ. Let's go.
Yeah. But yeah, so this is the top grossing films of 1973 in the United States. Number 10, Serpico.
Okay. Happy Christmas, everyone.
Number 9, Paper Moon.
Ah, okay.
Number 8, Robin Hood, the Walt Disney version.
Oh, I love that. Okay.
Number 7, Live and Let Die.
Oh, good choice.
Number 6, Magnum Force. Number 5, The Way We Were.
Oh, I didn't know
Number
that.
4, Papillon.
Oh, that is a
great
good film.
isn't it?
Yeah, that's a really good film.
Number 3, American Graffiti. Number 2,
Yeah, I never really got that.
I've never actually seen it. I've never seen it, actually.
Yeah, I thought it was like, it's just, I think it's, well, you and I didn't grow up in 1950s America, so I wouldn't bother.
Has George Lucas gone back and added like extra Chevys into the background?
Yes, he has, yeah.
Number 2, The Sting.
Oh, what a tune. What a sorry, the reason I said what a tune is because I've been thinking, like, most of the films you've mentioned have at least one iconic song associated with them, with the exception of Serpico. What a film, what a tune. Entertainer.
And number 1, released on Boxing Day this year, The Exorcist.
Wow. Crikey.
Actually,
Happy Christmas, everyone.
The Sting was released on Christmas Day, and then The Exorcist the very next day.
Wow, what a double header.
Yeah, 2 remarkably different films.
Yeah, completely different. And both brilliant.
Yeah, totally.
I think I rewatched The Sting quite recently. Oh, I don't know, last couple of years. It absolutely holds up. And the thing about it is that almost every time I completely forget what the ruse is. So it's only when they reveal at the end, I go, "Oh yes, of course, brilliant." That's how they got him. Fabulous. That that's a good year.
Yeah, I mean,
that's a good box office.
Any film or television program where they enact a complicated plan.
Oh,
it's gold. It's always gold, isn't it?
Yeah, I love it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Pop chart.
Well,
I'm assuming this is the Christmas pop chart. You've spoiled the number one, but not, but I have to say it was worth spoiling. So what's the rest of the pop chart?
There's a few classics on here. Number 10, Street Life by Roxy Music. Number 9, Roll Away the Stone by Mott the Hoople. Number 8, Lamplight by David Essex. Number 7, The Show Must Go On by Leo Sayer. Was it? No, the old sailor, Leo Sayer.
The old sailor, yeah.
Number 6, Paper Roses by Marie Osmond. Number 5, My Cuckoo by Alvin Stardust. Number 4, I Wish It Could Be Christmas Every Day by Wizard.
Oh.
Number 3, You Won't Find Another Fool Like Me featuring Lynn Paul by the New Seekers. Don't think I know that. Do I know that one?
Don't know that one. No. Well, you might do. I can't speak for you. I don't.
Number 2, your favourite, I Love You, Me. What's it? I Love You, Love Me, Love by Gary Glitter.
Oh, you're right, Russ. That is my favourite. Thank you.
And number 1, Merry Christmas, Everybody by
You'll often hear me sing that down the aisles of PC World. Brilliant. Prices?
Now,
how much were things worth?
As I mentioned earlier,
during the OPEC oil crisis.
As I mentioned earlier, my usual price website doesn't seem to work anymore.
I think that was before we recorded.
Maybe the person running it has got COVID or something. So I found a different website. So these prices are not necessarily directly comparable. But let's have a look. What is it? So we've got a gallon of petrol, 39 pence, which is £3.36 in today's prices. Pint of
how many litres in a gallon?
Pint of beer. Don't know. Oh, 4, isn't it? No, it's 8 pints in a gallon. Oh God, I can't work it out.
Oh yeah, there's roughly. Oh, it doesn't matter.
Pint of beer, 18.5 pence, £1.55.
Ooh, it's a good price.
20 fags, 26.5 pence, which is £2.28. How much is 20 fags these days? It's over a tenner, isn't it?
It's got to be. I was going to say 10 or 11 quid, isn't it? Do you see what they're doing in New Zealand or what they're proposing in New
great
Zealand?
Idea, isn't it? What a great idea.
It's a brilliant idea, yeah. Incrementally increase the age limit for smoking 1 year every year.
It's almost like New Zealand has now reached the point where they are essentially trolling the rest of the world's governments by coming up with good ideas that the rest of the world governments can't be bothered to come up with or are unwilling to come up with.
Clever people.
House price, £9,000, which is 78 grand now. What else do we normally?
Annual salary?
Oh yes, salary. The wages. This is weekly wages.
Okay.
Full-time manual worker, male, £38.10 a week.
Okay.
Full-time manual worker, female, £19.70 a week. Oh, and a bag of Golden Wonder crisps, 2.5 pence, which is 22p.
Oh, that's a good one. Do we know how much milk is? Because I just imagine that secretly OPEC were controlling the milk spigot.
Pint of milk, 5.5 pence, which is 47 pence.
Hey, that's about
right.
right.
That sounds right, isn't it?
That's not bad. Oh, it's the second time in a row.
And a colour TV, which is the...
Oh, yeah.
We haven't got the Argos catalogue because we're too early for the Argos catalogue. So let's go for colour TV, which is obviously a luxury item at the time. £208.90, which in today's money is 1,800 quid.
Wow!
3 times as much as a washing machine.
Bloody hell, that was expensive, wasn't it?
Yeah.
1,800 quid, colour TV. All right, 1973, bloody hell. So let's order this then. Let's order this Christmas special. Most important invention.
Well, it's got to be the computer console, isn't it?
I think it has to be, yeah.
I mean, I don't know. It's not saved any lives, and it's not,
No.
But it has changed the world, and it is, yeah.
Yes, I'd argue for the better as well. Like no, it hasn't changed anything. Like, you're not wrong, but
it's changed the face of the world.
Well, we've always said, we're quite relaxed and casual about the words important and invention, because the only other thing I could think of would have been the rollerblades. But, I mean, you've made a great case in your research that actually they probably already existed in one form or another somewhere else at the time. Yeah. And God knows the plastic surface was already out of date within a few years. So it has to be the computer
does,
game.
yeah.
I mean, like, in fact, they have this technology so fresh and new, they barely understand what they have.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
So it has to be
Yeah.
that. Most worthless invention.
Hang on. Actually,
It's actually in terms of best invention. Is there a case for talking about the mixing desk with memory? I mean, I'm not feeling it, but
no.
no, fine,
I mean,
okay.
they would have still been able to make music without it. I wouldn't have been able to play games without a computer game console. I could still be able to listen.
No, you're literally right, Russ. Very true. Worthless invention.
It's got to be the ice rink.
It has to be the ice rink, isn't it?
Yeah. And
I
only
suppose
because it was outdated so quickly.
Oh, here's one for best invention. I hate going back, but nothing's closed until it's closed. Top Gear. How are we viewing the wine temperature thing? Because I suppose my feeling is like if it really existed, it would be a really good invention. But because it doesn't, it's not a worthless invention either because it doesn't exist. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, I don't know whether I didn't get any sense as to when that colour changing dye was invented. It might be the case that was only just invented around then, and he was using the wine as an example as to its application. In which case, changing colour dyes are very useful.
Yes. But I think I agree with you that the first part of that segment was to support the second part, which is the competition. Which
what
clearly
about
one of
the
us have won.
Celsius scale?
I love that. That's a great invention.
Yeah.
I don't feel like. Well, let me put it this way. I think it predates this episode of Tomorrow's World. So that's an interesting thing. So in your research, did you discover why in 1973 they were trying to come up with, well, it's not a mnemonic, but with a kind of a memory device? It's like, had there been some kind of collective agreement that, yeah, all right, enough is enough. It's time to really roll this out properly because actually it makes sense and it's the future, or
it's got to coincide with the introduction of decimal coinage.
Decimal coinage.
I reckon they probably introduced decimal coinage and went, okay, now we've got everybody thinking in decimal. We might as well go the whole hog and switch over our measurements to the metric system because we want to enter the common market anyway.
That's true.
So it was probably some sort of push in that sort of direction. Would be my guess.
I still don't think it shifts computer games, but it's definitely a share for best invention then in that case. Yeah, okay, because I think that makes sense. I suppose kind of culturally there was a push because people were on board with the idea that there are maybe let's put it this way, there are more intuitive systems than the imperial measurement system, which obviously absolutely makes no sense whatsoever, no matter what people say. And you know that because the short version of pound is LB because it's Latin, which means that it probably is old, and maybe just maybe things have improved since. Maybe there's a better way of doing something. But maybe that's just me. Yeah, so we'll go with the ice rink thing. Most inaccurate prediction of the future. There weren't a ton of predictions of the future, were there?
Did they predict the future? The fact that Raymond calls it centigrade when it's been called Celsius ever since 1948, and it's not really a prediction though.
Maybe it's the man Michael Rod met who said he'd be an entertainer.
Whatever that other record that's playing during Michael Rod's bit.
Oh yeah,
says that's going to be a hit, isn't he?
Yeah, he does say it's going to be a hit. That's a great example. That's it. Yeah. That's the answer to that question. Worst screw up by a presenter. God, thank God you edit these pauses.
Were there any screw ups?
I don't think so. Well, except for Raymond Baxter pretending to shoot his daughter in the face.
Yeah, well, that was entirely deliberate.
It was entirely deliberate. It wasn't. Yeah.
Raymond breaking down in tears in court, but that wasn't on camera.
No, but it was on camera in the Latin legal sense, which means go on.
What about? Well, this isn't really by a presenter. This is by some member of production staff that, despite their best efforts to conceal the fact that snowplough was called what was it called?
Oh, perfect.
The roller.
Roller.
They then cut to a
absolutely
scene where
right.
you can quite clearly see the uncovered logo.
Yes, perfect. Absolutely. We're screwed by someone in the production team. Best attempt at making something boring interesting.
I guess Rod makes an effort to make his bit more. I mean, imagine how boring his bit would be
Without his song?
It would be
Yeah, you're not
unwatchable.
wrong.
It would be Rod at his worst. It'd be Rod like when we first encountered him when he was describing that nuclear power plant.
Do you know what I find interesting about this? Like the journey you and I have gone on with Rod, and how our view has changed. It's like, but we're not watching these episodes in chronological order. It's all us. We're the ones doing the heavy lifting here. It's the same man. To be fair, he's not screaming at a bird through a megaphone in this particular episode. More's the pity. There's that, and then I think there is the ice skating rink stuff. Just because, like, it is visually impressive just watching all those Swiss kids go around. But yeah, no, I think I agree with you with the Michael Royd piece. My hesitancy is that it really feels like him trying to crowbar another tune. Well, I say another tune. This predates the 500th episode, but it is him trying to crowbar a musical interlude into something. But I accept it on its terms, so I'm happy with that. Next question, quite easy. Best use of music?
Oh, Rod. Of course, Rod.
Rod, thrice Rod. Best or worst use of furniture? I mean, for me, it has to be that heated, springy cabin chair from the rollbar.
What do you think?
Because Woollard it's the best thing Woolard's ever seen in his life.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, I mean, there's some lovely furniture in Raymond's.
There is lovely
house,
furniture in Raymond's house.
It doesn't really get used in any exciting way.
Use of furniture is the key thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
It has to be used.
Whereas we know every single thing about that seat in that.
We know every single thing about that. He left nothing to the imagination. Yeah. That seat is far from coquettish because it is just there, spread eagle for us all to enjoy.
I could come away from this episode and draw that from memory. It's so perfectly to describe it.
Yeah. Did we see anything in the episode that made it through to the future? And yeah, I think the answer is that obviously we did. Yeah, absolutely. It was a pretty... Yeah, it was. I mean, I think top of the shop is computer games in general, like computer consoles specifically. I think we saw the rollerblades made it through.
The
snowplough, absolutely. Yeah, you can still get them, and roads still need clearing. Obviously, vinyl and card both made it into the future, despite those wily... Saudi Arabian OPEC managers trying their best to stop us enjoying both. And centigrade. And wine. Centigrade and wine. Absolutely. And Christmas, Russ. Despite this war on Christmas, it's somehow made it through.
Yeah, well, it's a war on Christmas, but Raymond's manning the barricade with the shotgun.
Yes, he is. Yeah, very true. Yeah. The face of no daughter will become between him and Christmas. What does this episode tell us about the 20th of December 1973?
I think it's not. I think Christmas is not the. It has not been commercialised in the way that we think of it now.
Yeah,
I think we're we're still at the very beginning of this 70s-isation of Christmas. But at the moment it's nice. It's got a nice innocence and a nice family, warm, cozy feeling about it.
I described it earlier as chaste, this episode, in terms of how it deals with Christmas. And you're right. There is still a nice, genteel, family-orientated innocence to this. But there is also a real joy about this episode, actually. And it's not just the kind of the slight festive quality. It is literally Raymond Baxter naturally laughs out loud with his daughter playing a computer game. And William Woollard naturally laughs out loud when he kind of fails to kind of come to an elegant stop on the ice rink. And I really enjoyed both those moments where you kind of see two very professional BBC presenters kind of slightly break.
Yeah.
And that to me makes this a nice special episode,
Yes.
even more than the faux Christmas quality they add to it, because it's barely there. With the exception of the Christmas tree in Raymond's house, it's a very delicate layering of Christmas on this. These days now, obviously, be much. I have no doubt when we do a Christmas special next year, and we'll probably do something in the 80s, it'll be Christmas as far as the eye can see.
I was about to say, because on my original plan, I was originally thinking, because I remember the
80s ones, yeah, so do I, yeah.
And I was thinking about doing one, and I turned on one from, I don't know, it's from 1988 or something like that.
That's the one I've seen on
was-
YouTube, yeah. I've not watched it.
It was so. I thought we can't go straight in. We can't do this episode so close to other Mad episodes because it's so non-Tomorrow's World. It's essentially a game show hosted by Howard Stapleton.
Yeah.
And there's just all of these celebrity guests, like Sylvester McCoy turns up in a TARDIS, and then there's like Derek Jameson and Frank Bruno, and it's just
oh wow, it's a real who's who.
Everyone's all over the place. It's just so chaotic, and I maybe next year we'll do it, but I just thought no, let's have something nice and traditional and calm.
Oh no, it's a great choice. Yeah. And actually, the thing is, like we do genuinely try and sort of randomly pick these episodes. So. And it has been a moderate coincidence that we have come across more quote unquote special episodes than I think you and I expected. But as a result, on a couple of occasions, we have chosen or we've deliberately course corrected to get deliberately find a quote unquote normal episode just to kind of, otherwise it just feels so artificial. It's like, no, because like we all grew up watching normal Tomorrow's World, but actually apparently every other episode was absolutely abnormal.
Yeah, I guess they're the ones people keep, aren't they? That's the thing.
That's sadly. Like Tears in the Rain, Russ. Tomorrow's World episodes, like Tears in the Rain. So the other part of our audit is the TW tropes, which I know everyone's a big fan of. A presenter having to speak over louder sounds. Now, isn't this brilliant? Because right at the beginning of the episode, well, not near the beginning of the episode, we see Willy Woolard in Switzerland. And the whole segment is about him and this gigantic machine that churns up snow and chucks it out the side. And it is all engine and all noise, even though he pretends it isn't. And not once does he speak over it, have to speak loudly over it. I was thrown for six, Russ. I thought, this is impossible. There's no way we'll hit this box. So, you were eager to speak about this earlier, but actually it is his second segment in Switzerland when he's on the ice rink that he has to speak loudly over all the rollerblading kids.
The sounds of children enjoying themselves on their rollerblades.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's almost as if, maybe, I reckon he probably recorded these in order. So recorded the snowplough bit in the morning and then this bit later in the day. Do you reckon he finished the snowplough bit? They went, that's in the can. And he went, oh no, I forgot to speak over a loud noise.
I didn't, but I do now. That's exactly what I think happened.
It's okay, Willy. We'll get it done later in the rollerblading segment. Don't you worry.
Yeah, we're off to Lausanne tomorrow. We'll hook you up big time with some noise. Yeah. So let me tick that because Willy Woolly did us a solid.
Yeah.
Maggie Philbin, quote unquote.
Well,
sleeves don't match her body.
No female presenters in this, although.
No, but nor is there anyone that whose sleeves don't match their body.
What was Jenny wearing?
I don't know. Go back and check. Well, I mean, that's clinched it, Russ. That looks suspiciously like. Actually, I'm not even sure I can describe that. It's like a woolen bra. It's not like a tank top at all. But nonetheless, the body of her knitted top does not match her sleeves, so I am happy.
So if we're counting Jenny Baxter as our Maggie Philbin of the episode.
Well, Maggie Philbin, since the last episode, is now in inverted commas, so yeah.
There's no doubt that grey and black sweater top thing does not match the otherwise pure white outfit.
Absolutely.
She's wearing there.
Stanley Kubrick reference. Now, I know you have a pet theory here that somehow the...
Why else would Magnavox change the name of its thing to the Odyssey unless they were trying to cash in on the futuristic? Because Odyssey, prior to 2001: A Space Odyssey, the word Odyssey would be associated with the ancient Greeks.
Yeah.
There's no storytelling element to this device. The only connection is that it's a space-age technology. It has to be connected.
So let me say why I... here's my question. Do Tomorrow's World reference Kubrick?
No.
Or does the product reference Kubrick?
Well, that doesn't matter, Mark. It just our trope is Stanley Kubrick reference. It doesn't say Tomorrow's World.
I suppose I've always imagined that it was something that the program did. Like I suppose like if they reviewed a Stanley Kubrick box set, is that a Stanley Kubrick reference?
This is such a classic power move on your part, Mark. Ridiculous. Shameless.
I'm such a gatekeeper. Thing is, I'd already decided I was going to accept it, so well done. It's in. Something to do with all the rigs. I mean, can we argue that the card and vinyl
the oil
supply crisis is directly related to oil?
Yeah, of course it is.
Yeah, thank you. Suspiciously obvious brand name on the ad-free BBC.
Well, they've dropped a clanger here because
100%.
They tried their very best not to have an obvious brand name, and then they snatched defeat out of the claws of victory, whatever the saying is, by displaying it really clearly in one of the shots.
I mean, all I want to do tomorrow is buy a Rolper. Is that what it is? A Rolper snowplough.
And you can go straight on eBay and get yourself one for 16.5 grand.
16 grand. And the thing is, I wouldn't have known what brand to get to search for, but now I do, thanks to the wonderful BBC. Clear and blatant lying.
Well, that's got to be Raymond with his fake labels, isn't it?
Bearing in mind, this is Raymond Baxter. It might be the most tawdry bit of lying we've seen so far. There's not I don't know, I felt slightly betrayed.
Yeah. It makes you wonder what other things he's been lying to us about.
Thank God we're here, Russ. Thank God we're here 40-something years later, nearly 50 years later to separate the wheat from the chaff. Evil farmers.
Don't think we had any farming sections, did we?
Sadly not. Casual sexism.
Right, there's a lot of firstly, Raymond's utter thrashing of his daughter with no remorse. I suppose that's not sexism, actually.
Very true.
That's just
not sexism.
Her,
that's a generational thing. Yeah.
But then there's a lot of assumptions that everyone's a he in this, isn't there?
Yes. So in the first segment that Willy Woolard does, this is not a term I was aware of, but he referred to roadmen. And initially, in my head, I assumed, and this is probably, my notes may not have made sense to you, I thought this was some kind of romantic term for people who like to go out and drive. They're called a roadman. Me? No. I'm a roadman. The lead of the pack kind of thing. And then you rightly pointed out that, no, actually, it's an old term for people who...
maintain roads.
Maintain roads. We don't call them those anymore. But... so there was that. There's also the fact that when he was talking about the Rolper 1200 or the R1200, he constantly referred to the driver as he. So he would talk about like the seat would heat him and so forth. And I'm a little bit forgiving with the roadman. I'm a little bit forgiving with the he, because at one point you actually see the driver of the snowplow and it is a he. So I'm willing to be forgiving and saying that Willy Woolard was talking about a specific individual.
He likes sticking man at the end of all of his professions, doesn't he?
He actually does, doesn't he? Newsman. Pressman, plural.
Although sometimes I think sticking man at the end of it or men at the end of it makes it sound better, because I read The Guardian. And whenever
that's why we refer to you as a Guardian man.
Whenever there's any articles about fishing now, they don't use the term fisherman, obviously, but they use fishers, and it just looks wrong. Like, it sounds wrong and looks wrong.
Yeah.
They need to come up with some other term for people who fish that's not fishers.
Are you talking about Isla Fisher or Fisher Stevens? Which one is it?
Fisher Stevens has got a very strange neckline. Have you noticed that?
What, in Succession?
Yeah.
Or just in general?
Obviously, he's in Short Circuit, and then amazingly, he used to go out with Michelle Pfeiffer for years. Right at the height of beauty.
Wow.
In sort of like the late 80s, early 90s.
What a get.
Went out with her.
Yeah.
How he managed to do that, I don't know. And now he crops up in stuff. He has the strangest neckline of anybody I've ever seen. It's like he's really, really proud of his... Have you not noticed?
Oh, the way his head sticks out forward. Oh, I got you. Yeah. I have noticed that. Yeah.
So anybody watching Succession, Fisher Stevens is the one with the weird neck and chin.
He's the vice president for publicity or whatever. Yeah. Sorry. But there is one, what I would say is one normal example of casual sexism, and then there's something else I'm going to talk about. So the normal example is Michael Rod's assumption that any recording engineer or anyone who mans a mixing desk would automatically be a he. He always refers to the engineer as he. He actually he talks about, I think, a recording engineer 3 or 4 times, the title of a recording engineer 3 or 4 times. And then he
say mans the mixing desk there, Mark.
Very true, Russ. You're absolutely right. Staffs the mixing desk or operates. But there's something else I noticed. Which I put at the top of the notes, is that this, I believe, is the very first episode, possibly, of Tomorrow's World that we watched, unless you're about to correct me, in which not one single woman speaks a single word at all. In fact, Jenny Baxter, I think, is the only woman we actually see, and she literally says nothing.
Ice skates as well.
I wasn't including her. She's a prop. But Jenny Baxter is actually demonstrating something. Yeah. She's ostensibly a presenter, and she says nothing.
No, she doesn't know.
Only men's voices are heard.
So I feel very shriek when that shotgun's waved in her face.
No, maybe she's just used to it, which is really sad. You think she'd be, she'd think, her child being shot up in Reading's Oracle Centre. So I feel very comfortable ticking casual sexism. Lab/space filled with darkness and coloured lights.
No, that's a 90s thing. There's no chance of that happening here, is there?
It is. The closest we get is the Shake and Quo. They are lit up by gels. And then when Rod is in the studio playing his song, he's also kind of weirdly lit. But
lighting in there, but it's not.
But I don't think it's not what we're looking for. So yeah. Not a single Dutch angle, Russ.
Well, I mean, the Dutch angle is that they invented ice skating, so I don't know if that counts.
Ooh. I mean, I'd love to tick it because that's fabulous wordplay, but it'll only confuse us down the line, so I'm not going to. Nothing was presented from the gantry.
No. No.
It's dad joke from Howard Stapleford, though I feel like Howard Stapleford could be inverted commas as well. Like there was no dad jokes here either, as far as I can remember.
No, it's not. No, way before dad joke era.
Episode ends in a damp squib.
Absolutely not.
I don't think so.
It's an exciting competition.
Which one of us has won this? Because to the best of our knowledge, no one else enters.
Yeah. Shall we set up some sort of vote? Get the listeners to vote on who their favourite poem is.
Nah, it'll only depress us. Just email us in or tweet or Instagram us at TW Order Time. If you have a preference. I think yours will win though, to be honest, because people love bad rap.
The kids love rap music these days, don't they, Mark?
They famously. And yours was nothing if not rap music. And then I've added this today, Willy Woolly Abroad. Though I feel like it should be Willy Woolly or McCann Abroad, because McCann is always the one. He takes over from Willy Wooller in terms of taking the lion's share of exciting foreign trips that we've seen so far.
Yeah, should be, yeah. That's a lover. That's a
the first half we almost ticked everything except for There's No Evil Farmers, and then the only things we don't tick are the 90s ones. So that's a pretty stellar tick box exercise there. I'm pleased with that one. Yeah. And what a merry Christmas episode that was.
That was. That's almost like opening all the windows on your advent calendar, isn't it?
And then gorging on the chocolate.
Yeah. Well, Mark, if all goes well, this will have been released on Christmas Day, and so I think it's just about time for the Queen's speech.
Oh my gosh! Her Madge.
Her Madge, indeed.
Wow.
I think probably it's time for us to say goodbye to everybody, so they can hurry down to their televisions, disconnect their Magnavox Odysseys, reconnect their television aerials, and listen to whatever Madge has got to blather on about this year. So
God bless your mum.
Yeah, God bless your mom, and so until next year, when we will we'll be back with more of the same.
No. Give it a big sell, Russ, because no one's going to care if it's more of the same.
Well, next year,
we're going to be coming back with something completely different that will sound similar, but will have different behind-the-scenes operations.
Well, the thing is, Mark, of course, our next episode, I don't really be able to imagine this, it will be from the year 2022. It will actually be from the future.
The future? I know. That sounds really futuristic, doesn't it?
It truly is tomorrow's worlds.
That sent a shiver down my spine, Russ.
And so, on that revelation, I will say goodbye. And, we will see you tomorrow.
Bye-bye.
Oh, and a very happy Christmas to you all.
I've been thinking back to times when I was younger than I am. I didn't believe that I'd grow up so soon. I only dreamt of driving trains and riding motorcycles.
Well, promising, I suppose, but he'll never make the top 10. Not without a little echo. How about some bass? Bring in some drums. That's nice. Now we'll fatten up the rhythm section a little bit. It's starting to happen now. Now why don't we give him another voice? Put in some more guitars. Bring up a little honky-tonk piano. It's really beginning to sound quite nice. How about what I call electric chops?